Hello and very warm good morning to one and all present here. My name is Saad Alam Khan and I'm your host for today from People to People Health Foundation. I wholeheartedly welcome you all to the third edition of Rare Diseases Consultation, Blueprint for Rare Diseases in India, and we have come together for rare. In today's program, we have a lot of eminent speakers who will add on to not only the information but also the awareness of the agenda. But before that, I would like to call upon CEO, People to People Health Foundation, Dr. Lakshmikant Palo, for the welcome note address.
Thank you, Shad, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's North Region consultation on blueprint for rare disease in India. This is second regional consultation in the series. We had one for the East region of the country. I would like to thank you all for your participation on this important consultation on rare diseases. We are pleased to host this consultation with Government of Chandigarh and Punjab and co-powered by Takeda and supported by Embassy of Japan. And also I would like to thank you our strategic partners, LSTSS, ORDI, Cure SMS Foundation of India and RDIF. And our resource partner, Grid Council, and knowledge partner, Institute of Child Health, Kolkata. I am grateful to the experts presented in this consultation from the state of Rajasthan, UP, Punjab, and Chandigarh and Delhi. We would like to thank you, Dr. Amandeep Kaur, MD, NHM Chandigarh, and Dr. GB Singh, Director Health Services, Government of Punjab, and Mr. KG Anand Krishnan, Director General, OPPI, for taking out their time to attend this important consultation. We would also like to acknowledge the support we have been receiving from Dr. Madhulika Kabra from the beginning of this series of consultation. Thank you, ma'am, for your support to this consultation. The objective of this consultation is to discuss and prioritize the need for people suffering from rare diseases. This is our fourth event in the series. We organized one roundtable discussion on draft national policy for rare disease in India in the month of February with FICCI, and then followed by a webinar on rare disease on 4th of August last year, and a similar consultation for Eastern region of India on December 12th, 2020. This is the second regional consultation, and we have planned for one more consultation in coming days for the southern part of India. Today, we have a combination of very high-level speakers from state government, academia, industry, and public sector units, NGOs, and patient advocates. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our speakers. I am requesting now Dr. Amandeep Kaur, Mission Director, NHM, Government of India, Government of Chandigarh, for keynote address. Thank you and welcome you again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction. Can I see the slides now? Can I start? Can you hear me?
Please start. We can hear you, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So rare diseases are a challenge, and globally about 7,000 rare diseases are there and only 5% have treatments. There is a significant unmet need for patients, family, and society, and the underlying causes are difficult to identify. And the symptoms are sometimes very common and often quite different for each patient and making this difficult to diagnose. The lack of scientific knowledge and quality information on the disease often results in delay in diagnosis due to the broad diversity of disorders and relatively common symptoms which can hide underlying rare diseases. Therefore, initial misdiagnosis is common, and it causes they cause unimaginable burden and challenges to patients, family, clinicians, and caretakers. The challenges include while diagnosing the disease and offering optimal care, affordability of medications. And challenges for clinicians are that thorough knowledge and experience in management is required, and local experts and standard guidelines need to be formulated. Next slide, please. So the field is very complex and heterogeneous, and continuously evolving field is there, and there is a significant deficit of medical and scientific knowledge. And in India, about 450 rare diseases are there, and they disproportionately affect children. And 50% of new cases are in children, and 35% of deaths before the age of 1 year are caused by rare diseases. The cost of treatment is prohibitively high. The diseases are of low prevalence and individually rare. Collectively, they affect a considerable proportion of the population in any country and offer a unique challenge to society and healthcare systems. Many countries, including India, do not have a tailored policy framework. Next slide. Next slide. So, the key factors that can have an impact on the burden of disease, there is a lack of knowledge and training, lack of awareness and information. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. Yeah, please go ahead. You're very well
Okay.
audible. Yeah.
Can I see the previous slide?
Support team, please switch to the previous slide. I request the support team to please switch to the previous slide.
To this slide. Yeah. So many
Okay.
countries, including India, we do not have a tailored policy framework as yet, and a supportive policy environment is therefore necessary to. And central government has considered reformulation of rare disease policy. Next slide. So the challenges are in terms of the lack of knowledge and training, and there is considerable lack of awareness and information, and there is delay in diagnosis and the lack of treatment, which is affordable, and the cost of treatment is somewhat sometimes very prohibitively high. There is inequity in accessibility of the treatments, and rare diseases are genetic and therefore exist for generations, and adequate knowledge needs to be disseminated about this, and uh, and the etiology and pathophysiology remains largely unknown. Next slide. Next. So India has a draft rare disease policy which is waiting for release, and it involves different stakeholders from government, industry bodies, patient advocacy groups, and judiciary. And government think tanks and knowledge partners from Niti Aayog, AIMS, ICMR, they're all putting in efforts to improve the environment and challenges of rare diseases. So the need for a national platform to collaborate on prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of rare diseases is required, and substantial attempts are urgently needed on rare diseases and orphan drugs. Next. So now coming to how we can move forward. So identification of key stakeholders to understand their perspective, and literature review needs to be done extensively. Identification of key evidence gaps wherever additional knowledge needs to be generated, and I think in the end of this summit, there will be a summary report and action agenda will be submitted, and it would be uh, a very good effort by the organizers. Next slide. So this slide shows that over a period of time, the citations of rare diseases in India has also improved. Next slide. So this is even in public domain, I think people are becoming aware, and we can see from the reports in the media that need for more clinical research on rare diseases in India is required. Next slide. So again, the scenario in India. So 80% of the diseases occur at birth and are genetic in nature, and 50% of babies born with rare diseases die within a year. And some of the rare diseases listed here show that ataxias, lysosomal storage disorders, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophies. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, this is a pictorial picture showing the impact of the rare diseases. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. So I congratulate the organizers in organizing this summit, and because initiatives to prioritize the needs of people suffering with rare diseases by bringing together diverse partners is the need of the hour. Next slide. Next slide. So we have crossed many milestones now, and a supportive policy environment is therefore necessary, and this is the government has considered the reformulation of the rare disease policy. So you can see that over the years in India, we have evolved that evolution of NPC DCS can be seen from this slide that it was initiated in 100 districts in 2010 and was integrated with the National Health Mission in 2013. And now I think we are going on to the rare diseases, and I hope they become part of a national program. Next slide. So let us come together and fight the rare diseases, and let us all share the responsibility to help the families whose children are suffering from this and reduce the impact on these families.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was our guest of honor, Dr. Amandeep Kaur Kang, Mission Director, NHM, Government of Chandigarh. I would now request the support team to please play the context-setting video, Patients' Stories, for our audience members.
सपना यही हुआ करता था 16 साल की उम्र में कि मैं जल्दी से ठीक हो जाऊं, इसलिए सपने नहीं देखते, उम्मीद ज़्यादा है और उम्मीद आज भी यही है कि बहुत जल्दी बहुत अच्छे दिन आएंगे, बहुत जल्दी जीने वाले दिन आएंगे। मैं 1 साल का था, मेरी जो एक्टिविटीज़ थी वो थोड़ी वीक होने लगी थी। 8-9 साल की उम्र में जाके पता चलेगी SMA टाइप 2 है। इन फ्यूचर क्या रिजल्ट है ये तो तभी पता चला जब हमने इसको फ्यूचर में ही एक्सपीरियंस करते गए।
Rare diseases, as the word suggests, are rare but great in number. There is not enough scientific data and awareness available on the causes and cure of these diseases. The prevalence of these diseases is among a small patient pool, making it harder to gather relevant scientific data or research for the same.
Diagnosis was quite difficult and it took a few years. Because of the rarity of the condition, my doctors had never seen a case like me before. I was subjected to various painful tests. I was finally diagnosed at the age of 5 years.
India is a country of approximately 1.33 billion diverse population with diverse problems. Thousands of people get sick every day and most of them get the right treatment. However, everyone is not lucky enough to make it through. There are some diseases for which there is a lot of desperation to seek and follow treatment. But the irony is, there is lack of treatment, lack of screening protocols for timely diagnosis, lack of access, and more importantly, very high cost. These are rare diseases.
जब मैं छोटा था, करीब 4 साल का, शुरू में पेट बड़ा हुआ तो आसपास के लोकल डॉक्टर्स को दिखाया तो उन्होंने कहा वो कुछ बताते रहे। फिर हम अपने स्टेट में दून हॉस्पिटल वहाँ गए तो वहाँ भी उनकी डॉक्टर की समझ में कुछ नहीं आया। तो फिर हम धीरे धीरे ऐसे बताते बताते दिल्ली पहुँचे तो वहाँ से बिल्कुल परफेक्ट डायग्नोज हो पाई ये बीमारी।
A rare disease is any disease that affects a small percentage of the population. WHO says rare diseases are lifelong disease or disorder which can cause declining effects on the life's quality. As the matter of fact, India, like many other developing countries, still has no standard definition and data on prevalence of rare diseases. But in most cases, the patient's life can be saved if the disease is diagnosed and treated at an early stage.
ये डिजीज़ इस तरीके से है कि अगर हम इसमें अवेयर रहें, हर एक फैमिली अवेयर रहे, तो आप इन चीज़ों से रोक सकते हैं।
I was fortunate to get this treatment free of cost through the company's charitable access program, making me the first known case of Gaucher disease in India to get treatment back in 1999. So since then, a couple of global pharma companies are providing this treatment free of cost to a few hundred patients in India on humanitarian grounds. But as these companies are constrained by the number of patients they can support, many patients in India are left untreated.
Rare diseases include genetic diseases, rare cancers, infectious tropical diseases, and degenerative diseases. 80% of rare diseases are genetic in origin and hence disproportionately impact children.
I was diagnosed when I was 1 year old, as told by my parents. So they believed that maybe it was something, normal thing which has happened. So they took me. It was a really long process because it happened like 23 years ago I was diagnosed. The medical science was like not good, and especially when you're talking about the science in India.
Reported case of rare diseases in India include Gaucher disease, Hurler syndrome, Hunter syndrome, Pompe disease, Fabry disease, Spinal muscular atrophy, MPS 4A, MPS 6, sickle cell anemia, and many more. As the number of persons suffering from rare diseases is small, currently very few pharmaceutical companies are manufacturing drugs for rare diseases globally. There are no domestic manufacturers in India. The impact on families is often catastrophic, both emotionally and financially, as the cost of treatment is remarkably high. However, India is working hard on addressing the issue of rare diseases. Thousands of medical experts, researchers, and government officials are trying to develop mechanisms as well as medicines to cure persons suffering from these diseases.
Rare disease patients may be few in number, but their life is as important as anyone else. Although the figure of approximately 7,000 rare diseases may look intimidating, but the actual number of rare diseases that are treatable is very few.
The Government of India released a draft policy in the public domain to strengthen it further. The government is working on strengthening the policy further, and this gives hope to the nation. Hence, the Blueprint for Rare Diseases initiative aspires to bring together rare diseases community to prioritize rare diseases policy and program.
इलाज तो अभी मुझे प्रोवाइड नहीं हुआ पाया। वो इलाज जो है ना, है वर्ल्ड के अंदर, लेकिन भारत में कुछ बच्चों को मिल भी रहा है, लेकिन वो बहुत कॉस्टली है। वो कुछ पॉलिसीज़ के थ्रू उन्हें बच्चों को मिल रहा है, तो मैं चाहता हूँ कि मुझे भी मिल जाए कोई पॉलिसी ऐसी।
If patients like Aditya can be blessed with a new life, we sincerely hope it will be possible to save Vishal, Tanvi, Sameer, and many other children and individuals living with rare diseases. Their dreams to play, to study, and to have a better quality of life. Sameer has still not lost hope.
Timely diagnosis and treatment play a crucial role in transforming the lives of patients. So most patients suffering from treatable rare diseases can live a completely normal and productive life if they are diagnosed and treated on time.
These were few rare people out of many who are hoping for adding more life to their years and a brighter future. Can we together be a part of the solution they are looking at?
Thank you to support team for playing the video. Without further ado, let's go and move on to our next keynote address by the guest of honor, Mr. KG Ananthakrishnan, Director General, OPPI. I would now like to request Mr. KG Ananthakrishnan to please come on the stage and address the audience.
Thanks,
Hello.
Saad. I hope I am visible and also heard clearly.
Yes, sir, you are.
Thank you. Dr. Lakshmikant Palo, CEO, PPHF, distinguished thought leaders in the discussion panel, ladies and gentlemen participating virtually, good morning to all. It's a pleasure to be invited to speak at the Northern Region Virtual Rare Disease Consultation, the blueprint for rare disease in India, which is jointly organized by the Union Territory of Chandigarh and PPHF and supported by Takeda Pharmaceutical as well as the Japan Embassy. I think what Dr. Amandeep Kang spoke and also the video that was played very clearly demonstrates to us the challenges that we have, so far as the rare disease is concerned. And it is so important that to better understand rare disease, which is often chronic, progressive, degenerative, and life threatening, we must have adequate knowledge about it. We must have adequate awareness about it. We must have adequate diagnosis and treatment available for the rare disease. And I think the whole objective of a program of this kind is that how can we try and address these issues in a comprehensive manner. As was mentioned earlier, the Government of India's draft national policy for rare disease is a very good step towards fostering a supportive policy environment. But it is important that this draft policy becomes a complete policy which will strike a good balance between access to treatment as well as the health system sustainability. And that is what we are all hoping towards. Because it is important that the policy is patient centric and the focus is on prevention, awareness generation, capacity building, access to affordable treatment, and also look at financial models, which can help the patients at the end of the day. To achieve these objectives, I have just tried to look at 7 key objectives that we need to achieve. First and foremost is to have a clarity on the definition of rare disease. The second is screening, diagnosis, and treating modalities. Third is funding for treatment of rare disease, research and development in rare disease area, improving public awareness, try and learn from global best practices, and then how can we try and create a multi-stakeholder partnership to achieve these objectives. I am not going to dwell on each one of them too much in detail given the 5 minutes time that has been allocated, but I'll touch on each one of them very briefly. I think that is extremely important that we have a good clarity on the definition of rare disease. And one of our suggestions has been that whatever is the definition of orphan drug that is there under the New Drugs and Clinical Trials Act, this could probably be adopted because it's also very well aligned with ICMR's existing criteria for considering a disease as a rare disease. Because it is so important to harmonize the definition, because this will prevent inconsistencies in treatment as well as application of policy. So hence the clarity of definition of rare disease is very important in our new policy that will come in. The second is screening and diagnosis and treatment modalities. To have a better approach for diagnosis of the rare disease, I think there should be state level diagnosis and treatment centers in all the states, in addition to the center of excellence that we have at national level, and this must get incorporated in the national policy. It cannot be just only few centers of excellence, but there must be center of excellence in every single state. So far as funding for the treatment of rare disease is concerned, I think there must be a very clear central funding outlay or mechanism for the rare diseases. It is not very clearly outlined in the new or in the draft policy as we have today. While there is some funding for group 1, group 2, and group 3 diseases, even that is not really adequate. A sustained funding mechanism can be put in place to ensure that sustained treatment to the patients with rare disease is happening. Otherwise, there will be a problem of some treatment happening and not a sustained treatment. These patients need our attention. These patients need the attention of the society, the government, and everybody. And hence, it is important that we develop this funding mechanism. And one of the options is, can we have a shared funding between center and state in whatever contribution? Could be a 60-40 ratio, because that can help these patients. In addition to that, in funding, all these taxes, GST, they can be waived off. First of all, these are very small in number. These treatments are expensive, and hence I think government must completely waive out all the GSTs and customs duties and taxes, etc. for this. As was mentioned in the video as well as by my earlier speaker, R&D and public awareness is extremely important. Right now, the awareness levels are very low. I think one of the patient also shared this very well. It was after going to several centers that they could diagnose that it was a rare disease. We must educate, we must build awareness at the state level, and these can be the pillars for strengthening the healthcare system. The central government should work with the state government to increase the awareness and knowledge at all levels of the healthcare functionaries. This is extremely important, and probably a corpus can be created to really increase this awareness levels. And in my opinion, the timing could not have been better, because with the COVID, what has happened is, I think the healthcare attention to healthcare has gone up significantly at the government level as well as at the public level. Let's make the best use of this opportunity to improve the awareness. And we must also ensure that the ICMR, single window registry for patient, which is there, is further strengthened and adequate data is captured, because that is what will be required for future research in the rare disease space. And it's a very good initiative that has been taken up by ICMR. Coming to global best practices, there are several good practices that are there. And instead of reinventing the wheel, we can try and learn from the best practice examples from other countries. For example, there is a rare disease reference network. India can try and set up a similar network in India. European reference network is there. What is the learning from there? How have they been able to make it successful? Can we try and learn from that and ensure that we have a reference network? An international rare disease reference net consortium is formed, so that we can learn from the experience and address the challenges of rare disease in a comprehensive manner. India-based models have been quite successful, particularly if you look at the government of Karnataka. It is emerging as a model state. Can we replicate that model in every single state in our country is something that we must try and work on. Like the Indira Gandhi Institute of Child Health in Bangalore, what they are trying to do is that replicable in other parts. Or Goa is the first state in the country to launch the digital registry for juvenile diabetes. What is their experience? Can we learn from that government model, and can we replicate it in other areas is something we must evaluate. Take the global experience, take the local Indian experience, merge them together to develop an India-based model for addressing the challenges of rare disease. And then we must ensure that it is a multi-stakeholder partnership. It's not just only the government. We need the government, we need the society, we need the medical community, we need the industry, we need the research organization, we need everyone to work together. There must be greater collaboration. This will not only reduce the cost, it will also build capacity, it will provide expertise, equipment, and medicines so that we are able to really keep the patient at the center and help him manage this disease in a much better way. Definitely share with you, my friends, that industry can assist in awareness efforts. They can try and bring about the latest developments that are happening in the rare disease space while ensuring and following the best of the ethical interaction that we can have with the community, with the doctor fraternity, with the associations, and what have you. This multi-stakeholder partnership is extremely important. So to just summarize the key takeaways that are there, the most important is that PPHF and others, we have to ensure that the rare disease policy comes into fruition at the earliest. The diagnosis of patient and of the with suspected rare disease must be accelerated. Similarly, universal screening of newborns must be made a mandate. It is necessary to build awareness of the disease among the public and the HCPs. That is very, very important at all levels, central level, state level. It must be worked on. We must work on developing a good funding mechanism, and let us encourage industry, academia, government, center and state partnership so that we are able to address this disease in a comprehensive manner. Research into rare disease must be prioritized. As somebody mentioned earlier, yes, it is not much, but if you look at the US example, there is separate funding being done today for rare disease research. These are the type of things that the government must also try and evaluate in our country and also learn from global experience.
Thank you so
Finally,
much.
OPPI member companies are committed to ensure access to innovative therapies for patients in India as well as all over the world, and have shown commitment to Indian patients and also in working with the government and the academia. Thank you so much, Dr. Lakshmikant Palo and PPHF for giving us this opportunity to share our views in this wonderful program that you have organized. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. That was Mr. KG Anantakrishnan, Director General, OPPI. Without further ado, I would now like to request our next keynote address by the guest of honor, Dr. GB Singh, Director of Health Services, Government of Punjab. Hello and welcome, Dr. GB Singh.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. You are audible. You may proceed.
Okay,
now.
thank you so much. At the outset, I would like to thank PPHF for inviting me for this important event that is being held in this COVID times through video conferencing. Of course, I have been a part of some of their earlier endeavors also, but as a program officer at a different level. Rare diseases, as I remember, as the name suggests, are the rare diseases which are not seen that often, which are difficult to diagnose, which are where the knowledge is about these diseases is also not very common. It is marked by a high cost of treatment. The doctors very often are unable to diagnose the diseases because they are not suspected even. Over the years, the government of India has been looking forward or looking at making some policies. I remember in 2017, I believe there was a policy by the government of India where they had started with with sponsoring the treatment of these rare diseases, but the policy was required a change. Policy was to be modified, so it was withheld for quite some time, and then there was a national level consultation again, which was co-sponsored by FICCI, and PPHF had organized it in Delhi. And being a part of that, we had taken a few decisions that how we need to proceed further, how we need to go forward on the treatment of these diseases where the patients are usually from any socioeconomic strata, but it's difficult for anybody to afford the treatment, which may go up to about 30-35 lakhs per annum. No doubt, some corporates have been supporting this treatment under their CSR. Some drug manufacturers have come forward for supporting these patients. But yes, definitely a policy at the national level is definitely is required, so that there is some support from the government, from along with these corporates and the drug manufacturers, to help these patients who are under a great strain, who are constrained to get their treatment, which is high cost. So it's quite heartening that today's consultation, which is again being held for this at the regional level, I do believe that there would be important outcomes, and which would be important and helpful in formulating the national policy for the rare diseases. Once again, I would like to thank Dr. Lakshmikant Palo, whom we have been meeting quite often for the rare disease program, as well as for consultations. I won't take much long, because I know that this is going to be a lengthy process, and the other speakers are also there. Thank you so much for inviting me for this important event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. GB Singh. Thank you for that consideration. Without further ado, I would now like to tell the audience member that our last keynote address by Chief Guest, Dr. Jitendra Singh, Minister of State for the Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region and Minister of State for Prime Minister's Office, Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space, Government of India, tentative, will not be able to join us on this panel today. We're deeply apologetic about it. Because of his tight schedule and interstate traveling, he may not be joining us for today's session. Without further ado, I would now like to open and go for the panel discussion, Key Unmet Needs in the Management of Rare Diseases and Priority Actions and Best Practices. Today, we have with us Dr. Madhulika Kabra, Professor, Division of Genetics, Department of Pediatrics, AIMS, who will be the moderator of the session. Need for Rare Diseases Screening and Diagnosis, Dr. Ratna Duapuri, Chairperson, Senior Consultant, Institute of Medical Genetics and Genomic, Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, New Delhi. Treatment of Rare Diseases, Where Are We? By Dr. Nir Gupta, Associate Professor, Division of Genetics, Department of Pediatrics, AIM. Clinical research in rare diseases area, needs and barriers, the speaker for which is Dr. Inusha Panigari, Professor Pediatrics Medicine, PGIMER, Chandigarh. Implementation strategies and challenges in Delhi State by Dr. Seema Kapoor, Professor Pediatrics and Coordinator of Genetic Unit and Lab, MAMC and LNJP Hospital, Delhi. And for the perspective from Rajasthan, the speaker is Dr. Ashok Gupta, who is Senior Professor and Medical Superintendent, Department of Pediatric Medicine, JK Lone Hospital, Rajasthan. Representation from Punjab shall be Dr. Sandeep Singh Gill, Assistant Director, State Nodal Officer, NPCDCS at Director, Health Services, Punjab. And we are connecting through a video representation from Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Shubha Rao Farke, Professor and Head, Department of Medical Genetics, Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Lucknow. I welcome all our eminent speaker today on the panel, and I may now request Dr. Madhulika Kabra to please moderate the session. Dr. Madhulika
Thank you very
Kabra,
much,
ma'am,
Saad. Good
you are
morning,
audible.
everybody. At the outset, I would like to thank PPHF for giving me this opportunity for moderating this session, and more importantly, for taking up this issue, which is a region-wise consultation for management of rare diseases. these sessions are being organized to assess the preparedness of the various states for managing rare diseases, because you are all know that the awareness for rare diseases is increasing, and the rare disease policy, the revised one, is almost on its way. Because health is a state subject, it is important to understand that what are the problems within the healthcare system in states which needs to be improved or put together so that we can have good management of patients and families with rare diseases. This mission program of PPHF began few months back when the first session was held, in which there was a general discussion regarding the preparedness and facilities for managing rare diseases in India, and what are the various perspectives which are being worked on by the government. And on that particular in that particular session, various stakeholders had put their views, and so that we can have an overall idea about the rare disease perspective in India. Following that, in the last month of December, the first regional consultation was held for the eastern region, again to understand the issues which are specific to the eastern region for management of rare diseases. The plan is to have more consultations, region specific, so as to have an idea about the preparedness and how soon the gaps can be filled in these regions so that we can have good management of rare diseases. So the present one, which is the second regional consultation, is from the northern region, northern part of India. And for this, we have eminent speakers, which you have already heard, to share their views regarding various aspects. The first two sessions are going to give you some general information about the status of diagnosis and screening for rare diseases, followed by the second one on treatment. And then we have some state perspectives from representatives from various states from the north. So the question answers will be at the end, both taken from the audience and also any question answers which we think can be taken upon based on the presentations of the panelists. So to begin with, I would call upon Dr. Ratna Duapuri to present her talk on need for rare disease screening and diagnosis, a very, very important issue to be discussed and understood very well. Dr. Ratna, please.
Good morning. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Please put it on full screen.
Yes, yes.
No, it can be seen. Thank you very much for the kind invitation to be a part of this forum. And I've been asked to speak in 8 minutes on the need for rare disease screening and diagnosis within the rare disease policy. So this has already been alluded to, so I'm not going to spend time on it. The ICMR on their website of the Rare Disease Registry, which has been initiated and rolled out in a phased manner, defines rare diseases as those that occur, with an incidence of less than 1 in 2,500. This is really from available Indian data, experiences, and the worldwide literature, which is also defined differently. In the US, it is less than 1 in 200,000 people. In the EU, it is 1 in 2,000, and in the WHO, it is 1 in 1,000. So there is a big burden of rare diseases, and we know that 80% of these are genetic in origin and contribute to a large extent to the morbidity and mortality, even in children who are less than 1 year of age, as you can see in the data that is shared on this slide. So what it requires, so before you are able to talk about any kind of management, it requires an accurate diagnosis. So this is the first part of my talk that I'm going to speak upon. We've already heard that these are uncommon. Many times a practitioner has seen one case in his or her career or none at all. And that is why these patients with rare diseases have a very, very long diagnostic odyssey. At times, an incorrect label has been given to them, And even when a correct diagnosis is arrived at, it is very difficult for the family in their minds to change the diagnosis. They cannot fathom that their child had been followed up for so many years with a different diagnosis, and now we are saying that the diagnosis is not A but B. There is a lot of disbelief and denial, as it is with genetic disorders and rare disorders, and a mishap like that can go a long way in adding to the concerns, the disbelief, and the agony of such families where they have children with rare disorders. So the implications are, why do we need to have a definitive diagnosis? Because there's so little we can do for them. One school of thought used to be that. Now we know that we have management for some of the treatment for some of these disorders, but even for disorders in the absence of definitive treatment, there are various management options, etc., which have to be given to the family on how to, do the best for their children. So because the management is lifelong, it is multidisciplinary. Now we have specific treatment. Some of these rare genetic disorders have 80% of them have a familial component. A definitive diagnosis is important for screening at-risk family members in the family. It is important to offer a recurrence risk estimation in the family. And then also, based on the recurrence risk estimation, prenatal diagnosis or pre-implantation genetic testing to prevent recurrence. And for each of these, we can appreciate that an accurate diagnosis is important. Now, we have different age groups where these genetic disorders are identified. We can right from the neonatal period to adulthood and in the prenatal period also. So the concerns in the neonatal period is, it's not as if they come with a tag of a rare disease or a genetic disorder. They present very much like a sepsis-like phenotype, because that's the armamentarium of symptoms that a neonate can present with. It could be just an infection, or it could be a fatal genetic disorder. And if at this point in time the diagnosis is not established, there is a loss of opportunity. Each one of us who are working in the rare disease field are faced with similar things on a daily basis in our clinics, that not one but 2 or 3 children have died without a diagnosis. The samples are not available because of the limited awareness in the peripheral sector for the primary healthcare physician that rare diseases can present with something as simple like a sepsis-like phenotype. And because of all these limitations, relevant additional tests to confirm a diagnosis cannot be done. Even if by various different methods we have reached a diagnosis, we need to correlate and test definitely in the child who has died. Those that present later, or the children survive the neonatal period and grow up to be children and adults, they have multiple admissions without correct diagnosis. Like I've told, there's a long diagnostic odyssey, there's increased morbidity and mortality, and appropriate treatments cannot be established and surveillance cannot be established. The techniques for various types of disorders depends on the disorder. Within these periods of, from the neonate to the adult, you would need a blood sample. In some cases, we also need a tissue biopsy, like a muscle and a skin. And for all of these, we realize that if we have lost the child, we cannot, confirm the diagnosis in that child. In the prenatal period, the main aim is to prevent the birth of a child with a disorder which there is significant morbidity and mortality. It's important to appreciate that we don't do prenatal diagnosis for those disorders which do not have significant morbidity and mortality. And again, this cannot be done without a correct diagnosis. So once we have diagnosis, the second part of my talk was screening for rare disorders. Now, this screening is an important vehicle to translate all the advances that we have seen in genetics and genomics into population health gains. That's the main reason for screening of disorders. It is actually a systematic program that is offered to a specified population of asymptomatic individuals, whereby we can make an estimate as to what is the risk of an inherited disease. We can detect it early before symptoms come and can institute treatment before there is any impact because of an undiagnosed condition. Once we have screened for a disease and confirmed it, again, you go back to the possibility of transmitting. So actually the purpose of screening really is for disease prevention, early treatment, and as a consequence of all this, family planning also is benefited. So there is absolutely no uncertainty, as the previous speakers have also brought about, that we need to screen for rare diseases in India. The reason for this is we have a high burden of genetic disorders because of our large population, the high birth rate, the endogamy, and the consanguinity. And we all know and understand and appreciate that even though individually these diseases are rare, collectively they contribute important and an important part of the morbidity and the mortality rates in our NICUs, PICUs, and hospitals. So, what sort of screening program? Again, we can do screening at various time periods in life. There is prenatal screening. The most important is actually prenatal screening for malformations, those lethal malformations like anencephaly, etc., and also for neural tube defects. This is a basic and should be available everywhere. The second is blood tests for screening for Down syndrome, and also we can use AFP for screening for neural tube defects along with ultrasound. Neonatal screening, we need to screen for hypothyroidism. And of course, there are other disorders along with hypothyroidism like G6PD, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, biotinidase deficiency, hemoglobinopathies, and sickle cell disease. There are also many countries now which are doing the expanded newborn screening for various inborn errors of metabolism which have treatment. And then hearing loss and critical congenital cardiac disease. We also have preconception screening. That is for a couple who want to plan a pregnancy. So we know that beta thalassemia and sickle cell and these other hemoglobinopathies are common in India. So screening for this is instituted by HPLC hemoglobin A2. Spinal muscular atrophy is another common autosomal recessive disorders. We have data from 2 big centers in India which tell us that the carrier rate ranges from 1 in 33 to 1 in 44. Rubella, of course, is an infection for which vaccination should be given prior to conception. Other disorders that are on the anvil, but we don't have too much data, is Fragile X. And of course, if there is a family history of any genetic disorder, then at-risk screening should be done in the preconception period. So the screening needs to be available for all, and not only for those privileged who are able to access healthcare facilities where the screening is available. Right now, the access of patients for diagnosis, screening, and management of rare disorders is not equitable. There is a lot of lack of awareness. So that is why all this has to come within a public health program that is systematically offered to an asymptomatic population, so that we can identify those who are at high risk. So this population-based program is for mass screening. Then we have opportunistic screening. We know that a specific disorder is common in an area, so we apply opportunistic screening there. And then, of course, in clinical practice, yes, I'm done.
Hello,
We have cascade screening and
apologies.
genetic testing.
Apologies for that, ma'am, because of the tight schedule.
Yes,
I
I'm
may now
completed.
request. Thank you
This
so
is
much,
my
ma'am. Thank
last.
you for your
Okay.
presentation. I may now request Dr. Madhulika Kabra to please invite the next speaker for the panel. Thank you, Dr. Ratna.
Thank you, Ratna, for taking us through the diagnosis and screening from in utero to adults and elderly. We'll have some discussion later on this. So now I call upon Dr. Nir Gupta, who will be talking to us about the treatment of rare diseases and where are we presently in India. Nirja?
Yes, good morning, ma'am. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Please put it on full screen mode. Go to the presentation slide. Yes, please put it
Yes,
on
we
full
can
screen.
see.
You are audible. Thank you.
Okay. So, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are. Please continue.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind invitation. The topic that I have been given is the treatment of rare diseases. Where are we internationally and nationally? So before going ahead, let's see few facts that a variety of rare diseases occur across various specialities, and there are more than 7,000 rare diseases. The most affected areas of rare diseases include endocrine and metabolic disorders, neurology, and the hemato-oncological disorders. Three-fourths of the people affected with rare diseases are children, and less than 500 of rare diseases have FDA-approved treatment. Less than 5% rare disease currently have an effective treatment. So despite so many recent progresses, there is still much more work
Dr.
to be
Nirja,
done.
excuse
Yeah.
me. Sorry for interrupting, Dr. Nirja Gupta, ma'am. Please switch on your camera. Our audience members cannot see you visually. Please go back to the streaming yard window and switch on your camera.
Done.
Thank you so much. Please continue. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, so we have various existing and widely used modalities such as supportive product replacement, such as factor replacement or the growth hormone replacement, transplant, tissue transplant, organ transplant, enzyme replacement therapies. The supportive treatment remains one of the most important component besides specific treatment for any rare diseases. Most of the research is now being conducted on genetic therapies, which you can see is just 1% in earlier years, but now it has been increasing. So, as only 5% of the rare diseases have an approved treatment option, research for the development of newer therapies is in progress, which is reflected by this diagram. It shows that there are many drugs that are under various phases of development, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, and majorly these therapies majorly involves cancer and the genetic disorders. So, with technological advancements, there has been tremendous opportunities, and there is a great potential to detect more patients due to improved diagnostics and awareness and wide availability of genomics. There has been a growing experience in small molecule therapies development, and also there is a growing experience in designing the tailored treatment approaches. So as per the recent medical update, there are 362 novel cell and gene therapies that range from early to late stages of clinical development. There has also been a tremendous increase in the drug approvals for rare diseases, which include rare cancers. So, there are 4 tailored genetic therapeutic approaches that are being widely used for the therapy development. These are gene transfer therapies, which means wherein you replace missing genes by using viral vectors. Some of the examples include childhood onset blindness due to this particular mutation, spinal muscular atrophy, ADA deficiency, and metachromatic leukodystrophy. The second is gene disruption technology, which includes antisense oligonucleotides, RNA interference, microRNA modulations. It includes modification or block a disease causing protein. The examples being exodins and nusinersen for SMA, exodins for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The third one is gene editing approaches, wherein you directly modify the genes in vivo or ex vivo using CRISPR and zinc finger technologies. The 2 examples are Hunter syndrome and beta thalassemia. The fourth, which is more common for cancers, is gene modified cell therapy, wherein CAR T cells are used, that is, chimeric antigen receptor cells are used, and it is used to treat refractory cancers like leukemias and lymphomas. So let's see what is the current status of treatment in India. So the first and the foremost problem is that the cost is quite prohibitive for such treatments, and most of these drugs are imported. They are not manufactured in India. Patients are on treatment under either corporate social responsibility or humanitarian initiatives. They get reimbursement for government employees is possible. There is a need for making SOPs and treatment guidelines for proper case selection, because these are expensive treatments. So we need to make a an individualized approach for these patients. And we also need to strengthen the care in various big hospitals. We also need a relaxation for DCGI rules for drug trials and experimental trials, which is now possible because of the recent amendments. And there has to be a government policy on rare disease treatment, which is also in pipeline. So there are major issues with support for long-term expensive therapies, because of which there was an expert group consultation meeting was held in 2018, and which was based upon Dr. VK Paul's recommendation. The three categories of disorders were defined. So diseases for which one-time treatment can benefit through stringent follow-up. The second category was diseases for which long-term treatment would benefit and can be made available at a relatively low cost, and annual or more frequent surveillance is required. And third is the diseases for which definitive treatment is available, but challenges are to make the optimal patient selection for benefit. This includes enzyme replacement therapy also. So there is a need to have strict inclusion-exclusion criteria and follow-up plans and supportive management in place across various categories to make rare disease therapies available in a transparent and unambiguous manner. These should be revised annually or every 2 years due to ongoing rapid advancements. So this table just highlight that for inherited hematological and the coagulation disorders, patient support group efforts, government efforts, and CSR have made it possible to make therapies available for these two categories. Still, treatment for several major groups like lysosomal storage disorders, IEM, cystic fibrosis, neuromuscular disorders the treatment is yet to be streamlined, where mostly we rely on compassionate access program or reimbursement or out-of-pocket expenditure. So, Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi scheme has come as a boon for rare diseases, because herein we have one-time support of up to 15 lakhs for these category of disorders. So, we also have some challenges in rare disease therapy development, because of which it is not accessible to all. The first and foremost challenge include high development and the production cost, because these are particularly difficult for rare diseases to overcome, because the market for the product and once approved is inherently very, very small, thus limiting the potential for the return on investment. And also we need a long research and the development times for the rare disease, because of there's a need for a knowledge base for the diseases, such as longitudinal obtaining the natural history data, defining outcome measures, and there is relatively small number of available trial participants. And third and most important is that there are large number of rare diseases, but each affect very few patients. So these are the challenges that are involved in the rare disease therapy development. And there we have few strategies to enhance the rare disease therapy development, which includes integration of research and care and enhancing data collection and utilization of novel technology, which means that as there are limited number of disease experts for individual rare diseases, and many rare diseases patients come in contact with specialized physicians that provide both expert care and work on the research projects. So we should have electronic health records and other data archiving at all academic medical centers to better integrate the costly capture of clinical research data with the data that is already being collected for the clinical purposes. And today's pandemic time has also taught us to explore other data capture methods, such as mobile technology or wearable biosensors that can be readily integrated with the data gathered in registries or clinical studies. So this would also make it possible to have remote clinical trial visits for patients with such rare disorders. So we should also try to find ways to develop platforms so that some of the infrastructure or the data and the experience that is common to several products can be staged in early stages. And we need to strengthen the public-private partnership for finding effective ways for a smooth product development. So to conclude, we need to find ways to invest in made in India rare disease therapies. We need to accelerate the R&D in rare disease therapeutics so that no disease and no patient is ultimately left behind in getting access to safe and effective therapeutics. And it should be affordable and accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nir Gupta. Dr. Madhulika Kabra, ma'am, I may now request you to please invite the next speaker of the panel. Seems like we're having an issue connecting with Dr. Madhulika Kabra. I may now go ahead and invite Dr. Inusha Panigari, Professor Pediatric Medicine, PGIMER, Chandigarh, who's going to speak upon the clinical research in rare diseases area, need and barrier. Dr. Inusha Panigari, ma'am, I would now request you to please unmute yourself. Thank you. Dr. Inusha, ma'am, please unmute yourself. Yes, ma'am.
So the screen is visible?
Not yet, ma'am. Please click on the share screen option at the bottom of your display screen so that we can see the screen. Ma'am, if you're having trouble doing that, I may also request you to let me share your PPT if that is fine by you. Should Okay now, ma'am. Yes, we can see your PPT and hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, so the topic is clinical research in rare diseases, needs and barriers. Some introduction has been already given by Dr. Nirja. So there is need for more research into this group of disorders, which are till now neglected, and infections have always been a priority. So information on rare monogenic autosomal dominant and recessive disorders is important. And there is a need for maintenance of a registry. Just hold on. And this registry will enable for proper maintenance of the record, so that we know how many diseases are there per category, and accordingly we can plan our approach to the rare disease research. Then community based approach is necessary, and then we can also study the phenotype variability studies, because sometimes the ethnic population or the ethnic group
Dr. Inusha, ma'am, can you hear me? Seems like there's a technical glitch. Till the time Dr. Inusha ma'am is reconnecting back again, I would now request all the audience members to please click on the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. There you can put on all your questions relevant to what the panelists are speaking, or if you have any other questions relevant to the agenda, you can put all the questions in the QA option at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much for coordinating with us. We are having Dr. Inusha ma'am back with us in just a moment. By the time, I would also like to announce that you can also go back in the break after the panel. You can also go to the main lobby. There you can find platforms like Social Lounge, where for the first time on our platform, you can interact with each other. Yes, the participants, the audience members can interact with each other and share subjects of common interest. You can also do private messaging and share contacts. There's also a feedback section in the info center in the main lobby, and you can click on that and get all the relevant information, all the handles of People to People Health Foundation. We are waiting for Dr. Inusha ma'am once again till we have that back again.
Yes, I'm sharing.
Okay, welcome back, ma'am.
So this, I think I have completed. The community-based approach is necessary, and phenotype variability studies can be done to enable the specific presentation or phenotypes. Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Can you please put it on full screen mode? Go to slideshow and click on from continuing slide.
I think it is full screen only.
Ma'am, to us it is looking. Please click on the slideshow button at the top menu.
Slideshow only I have done. This is slideshow only. This is slideshow, but it is not covering the full screen on my laptop.
All right, ma'am. Okay, please continue.
So phenotype variability studies will enable by knowing the specific phenotype in our population, and this can be variable depending on different population for certain disorders, because there can be other factors which can be affecting the phenotype. So effect of consanguinity can be studied, and high consanguinity and inbreeding in various ethnic communities are there in certain populations or ethnic groups in India, and uncle niece marriages are common in South India, and especially except for Kerala, most of the South Indian states practice these uncle niece marriages, though lately some this frequency has decreased because of increased awareness. Some founder mutations have been identified in certain communities like the Agarwal community, and more studies are needed to find out the common mutations in different rare diseases. Some studies are available on rare bleeding disorders like Lanzmann's thrombasthenia and some other rare factor deficiencies in the Indian population. But there is more research needed to identify what disorders are particularly prevalent in the Indian population and what is the cause for that, what is the genetic defect causing that phenotype. So like one skeletal dysplasia is there in the South Indian population, especially in Karnataka, Handigodu disease, in which more research is needed so that we can develop specific therapies for that disorder. So most orphan drugs are manufactured outside India, as Nirja has already alluded to, and multinational companies usually produce these drugs. So this is not accessible to the Indian population. Most of the patients are deprived of the therapy because of the cost. And since there can be population-specific pharmacokinetic differences which can affect the response to therapy, so background population studies are needed on different drugs, and then they can be made accessible to the patients in the country. So cost of the drugs can be decreased if these are locally developed and manufactured. So more focus or priority should be given to development of these drugs under the Made in India initiative, and so we can then provide therapy for many of these patients with rare diseases. So the another point is identification of population specific variants by customize, and so that we can have customized genetic testing for different diseases. And more number of variants for various diseases have yet to be identified in the Indian population. When we do some testing, we usually identify variants of unknown significance, because it is likely that these variants have not been reported in the other populations, and we have to identify our common mutations. And in this process, we have to also keep in view the data privacy regulations, so that these data of the Indian population are not shared with the outside companies, and there is access to only Indians or the Indian researchers for the big data that is generated with a proper consent from the families. Then selective prenatal diagnosis can be done for the severe disorders with significant morbidity and mortality, because this is an important step in the prevention of these diseases. So the key requirements are effective collaboration between multiple centers, which is lacking in the present scenario, and better networking and maintenance of registries, so that we can identify and do proper research. We can streamline the research, clinical research in this area. Then fast tracking of the national rare disease policy is necessary, with appropriate practical guidelines, so that the patients can take therapy with relative ease. And then increasing awareness among physicians for early and correct disease identification is essential, because unless the physicians know that the particular disease exists, they will not be able to diagnose or refer the patient for appropriate management. And then there is a need for effective use of corporate social responsibility, so that we can help out the patients with this CSR, and they can receive appropriate therapy in time, because early diagnosis and treatment is the key to proper management in these rare disease cases. Thank you for patient listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Inusha ma'am. I may now request Dr. Madhulika Kabra ma'am to invite the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inusha, for taking us through the areas of rare disease research and the challenges. Now, I would call upon Dr. Seema Kapoor, and she would be discussing with us regarding the challenges in Delhi state when we plan to implement rare disease strategies. Seema, please.
Thank you, ma'am, so much. I trying to share my screen with you if it's possible. Otherwise, I will request, without wasting time, to. Is it okay? Is my screen visible? Hello.
Not yet, ma'am. Please,
Could you
if you
just
want,
play?
I can also.
Yeah, just play the slides, and I can tell you when to go ahead.
Just
Right?
sure,
That's
ma'am.
better. Otherwise we'll waste time.
All
Right.
right.
So
Definitely.
my approach has been a little more different, and I think the implementation strategies and challenges. I've just taken Delhi as a model role, and I've dwelled on issues which are very, very basics. So let's go to the first slide. Next slide, please. So, what is the aim of a rare disease network? The first aim is to address the barriers in the diagnosis, which is a very, very basic necessity to identify a rare disease. Please, the slide can go on. So, the examination, no, before this, please, when I say the next slide, go to the next slide. Now, what when we do as an undergraduate, or when we make a diagnosis, or we think of doing an undergraduate teaching, we leave them as an examination strategy based learning rather than deep learning or good to know areas. So, as yet, genetics is not the must know area. It's good to know or very good to know. And very good to know because they're basically syndromes which senior faculty members have never seen. Hence, even if you strongly consider a case as pancytopenia, Gaucher disease in a teaching medical college will still come last in the differential diagnosis because most of the senior faculty members have never actually made a diagnosis of a baby with Gaucher disease. So, when do we start and what do we start with? So, we actually need to sensitize by inverting the pyramid of treating strategies. That is, teach the teachers first. If the teachers don't recognize a case, the undergraduates would definitely not recognize any such case, and the bare important necessity of a rare disease will completely go. So, what should be done? The clinical teaching strategy should have a structured training of trainers starting from the senior most faculty who actually consider that rare disease is an important area and not just a case report for a publication. In addition to when you're being recognized, I have more than 150 publications, of which 3 are rare diseases. But it's important that you understand that though rare, the figures in India and the population in India and the population in Delhi alone does not make rare disease actually a rare disease. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, let's look at the other issues of academic medical undergraduate teaching in Delhi. And I'm just telling you how we could go it. The adequacy of exposure, we have a list of all the cases which they should do: hepatosplenomegaly, developmental delay, thalassemia, and many more. But don't they understand that rare needs more care? So at least some prototypic rare diseases must be included in the medical undergraduate teaching sessions. Also, there are centers which have specialty clinics, and there should be a rotation in the 8th and 9th semester when they have grasped the biochemical, the pathological, and the clinical aspect of a rare disease, and then they actually see a case, then it'll go more deeper down. So until unless all the medical colleges start having specialty clinics, I don't think a medical undergraduate passing out of any of these medical colleges will actually be able to recognize a rare disease, and we will still be in the odyssey of not knowing exactly what to do. Now, even if I diagnose, do I just write a paper? I write a paper because I have not seen the exposure, what the treatment has done, whether the treatment, how a patient has responded on enzyme replacement therapy, foods for special medical purposes, and the cognitive assessment that he has maintained post transplants, may it be an hematopoietic stem cell transplant, or kidney transplant, a liver transplant, or a combined transplant. It's very important that they have been exposed to some kind of patients who have received these treatments, and then they understand that yes, as an undergraduate, I have seen a response. I need to identify a rare disease person as a rare disease, and therefore I need to give it one more minute and take an opinion in case I can't make one. Now, this new curriculum, which has been put in last year for MBBS, which looks at integrated teaching, actually needs a new MCI curriculum to boost MBBS centric projects. We have STM, ICMR, STS. Let me just share a very recent experience with you. I got 3 students coming to me because the Indian Rheumatology Association were giving a stipend of rupees 20,000 to medical undergraduates to write a short project. Could this not boost inertia? Could SIMG, this group who is looking at rare diseases, put up such a stipend for MBBS students? So at least this stipend will give them an incentive to remove this inertia and move to something better in medical undergraduate teaching. Let's go to the next slide, please. So let's look at what's the scenario in Delhi. We have 1 autonomous institute, that is All India Institute of Medical Sciences. We have 2 institutes under Delhi government, which is MAMC and UCMS. We have 1 institute under municipal corporation, which is Hindu Rao. We have 1 institute under ESI, which is ESI Medical College, Basai Dharapur. We have 3 affiliated private medical colleges. All of these are under different universities. So, can one policy address all? It cannot be a deemed policy. It cannot be Delhi University. It cannot be the ESI sector. So it has to be the finding that rare need the utmost care, and therefore we need to actually change the medical curriculum, not the universities, but of the entire country, to understand how important it is for an undergraduate to recognize a rare medical condition. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now let's look at postgraduate medical teaching. Are the bricks the fault that we are having? I mean, is it that we are not teaching our undergraduates the right way to look at rare diseases? So let's look at what a postgraduate does. He definitely gets more exposure and compulsory rotations, but most of the medical colleges lack specialty clinics, and that's true even in the state and the capital of Delhi. They are taught more in preparation about rare diseases when they go to coaching classes, because they expect some case like this to come as a difficult case. But when they actually come to clinical rotation, we don't give them enough exposure. I'm not talking about an individual medical college in Delhi. There may be disparities between the level, but that's what's going to be happening in every state. They look at important long cases. They have long cases, short cases, and OSCE. Developmental delay and developmental regression are purely genetic conditions, basically about 80% of them being rare, very few of them being viral. They're taught reflex teaching and neurological assessment rather than elucidation that these could have an underlying genetic cause, and find the basis of prevention, and therefore also look at newer options of treatment, which were discussed by Nir just now. Now, this pedigree or inbreeding is only given an emphasis as a routine teaching. If you see the case sheets of most medical graduates, they would not understand what inbreeding means, and that's usually not put up. The only thing they will say as a prototype is there is no consanguinity. They are more tuned to go to neonatology, intensive care, and endoscopy branches. Why? Because they understand that only syndromes comes to genetics. They don't understand if today the vaccine for COVID-19 is an mRNA vaccine, or it is an attenuated live virus with dead particles and nanoparticles. And in actually one of the vaccines, which was released by Vanderbilt University, the mRNA vaccine was actually designed by a pediatric infectious disease fellow. It was a rare pandemic. We all came into it, but we never realized that it was genetics which put all the three vaccines together. So I think it's the bricks that are at fault. And if the bricks are at fault, even salt will not taste like salt. It's very, very important to understand change in the postgraduate medical teaching is very much required to understand the arena of rare diseases. Next, please. So, what is it in terms of Delhi in diagnostics? Is aware of the rare, the diagnostics behind this care? Is it that? No, Delhi is privileged in terms of diagnostics because there are centers which are public and private, which at a 2 to 3 hours call in normal working day at a subsidized price or free will give you a clue to the small molecule disease, also will give you a clue to the large molecule disease, and will give you a DNA based diagnosis. And there have been multiple ICMR task force centers, of which, yeah, if I'm exceeding, I just stop the moment you ask me. So the scare is I'm not educated on what to test and where, and therefore we need to build in a robust, mutually inclusive network. Next. So I'll just tell you that if you look at Delhi survey, the infant mortality is at its coming down significantly. So less than 16, 14, and 21 compared to 33, 22. And therefore, this is the time, and the per capita income in the national capital has definitely increased. So is this the time that we have to stand and stare and look at non-communicable diseases, including rare genetic diseases, just in the backstage? Next, please. The next slide, please. So what is it? The last, this is a slide which I haven't made, but I took from one of the presentations. So it's important to promote research. And I think we've all dwelt with what is the importance. Let's go to the last slide, which I'm there. Next. So the strategic actions, the need for strength for rare, just to be fair to all, is the Right to Life Act is in place. We have funding crunch and competing priorities, and we are talking about CSR and crowdfunding, which can begin from the political and the financial capital of the country.
Seems like there is a technical glitch, ma'am. I can no longer hear you. All right, we'll be connecting back to Dr. Seema Kapoor, ma'am. I may now request Dr. Madhulika Kabra, ma'am, to invite the next speaker. But before that, audience members, if you have once again any questions, please put your questions in the QA box so that after the panel, all the eminent speakers can take the questions up. Thank you so much. Yes, we have Dr. Seema Kapoor, ma'am, back with us again. All right. Let me now go ahead and proceed with our next speaker. That is Dr. Ashok Gupta, Senior Professor and Medical Superintendent, Department of Pediatrics Medicine, J.K. Lone Hospital, Rajasthan. The talk is Perspective from Rajasthan. I may now request Dr. Ashok Gupta to please come on the stage and deliver his keynote address. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Saad, for inviting me for this important event. And I'll also like to thank the PPA, the foundation, to have given me this opportunity. And especially why is it important is because to give a perspective of what has happened in the state of Rajasthan. Because we started rare disease thought early. We started in the year 2013. Can you see these slides?
Yes, sir, we can. Please put it on full screen mode.
Full screen. Now is it okay?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah. So, rare disease in Rajasthan, we formally started the program in the year 2014. We are the first medical college in the country which had decided to have its own rare disease program. And so we took a formal permission from the principal of the medical school. We are at SMS Jaipur. And so they gave us a permission, and we started working on it. And from 2016, we have maintained all our patient records. And what you find is that over a period of time, there has been almost 400% increase in the number of patients visiting us. And we've also been able to define the kind of disorders that we see more often. One is metabolic disorders, the dysmorphology, the genetic disorders. And then the initial hitches that we faced, because having heard Seema Kapoor speak on the problems faced because we do not have a definite program. So in the initial years, again, in Rajasthan, we were at a loss to understand how do we really go about educating our residents in the field of rare diseases, and how do we sensitize everybody across the state of Rajasthan, especially from the medical fraternity, to understand the issue of rare disease. And that is where we decided to do a book on it, and it's a small textbook on rare disease in pediatrics. And the net result was this rare disease book, when we published, it was so basic and so easy that everybody now got onto the same page. And that is why Rajasthan, if you look at our state, because it's been only 6 years that we've been working in the field of rare disease, we've been able to really create a good impact in the state and sensitize the government. We have been able to sensitize the leadership, and it is primarily because it's been slightly more focused and oriented group of people working with the rare disease. Very recently, we were working with the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Bakul Parekh, who's the president, was very keen to develop it, and so we worked with him to develop a course manual on rare diseases. Again, the intent is to really sensitize pediatricians, because when I got into rare diseases at that point of time, it was primarily focused only with genetics. And the large base, if you look at the statistics, almost 75 to 80% of these patients primarily have a pediatric base for the disease. And so that until the pediatricians are sensitive enough, or they are able to recognize the disease early, these patients will be diagnosed late, they'll be referred late, and they'll get into treatment plans very late, and will never be able to influence the policies and programs. And so we've had meetings with Bakul, we have had meetings with other leaders in the field. And so the first thing that we did when we started the program in our own medical school, to have a dedicated rare disease ward, which had 12 beds, only reserved for rare disease patients. And we also established our own newborn screening lab, and we got a lot of support from Dr. Seema Kapoor for that, because she's been a pioneer and the leader in this field. So when we thought of developing a newborn screening lab, we took the advantage of the fact that there was a lot of commitment coming from the corporate social responsibility group, and so we were able to get it funded. And subsequently, the government, the state government, is now funding the total newborn screening program. And now in the last 1 year, we have completed 30,000 newborn screening tests. Well, the rare disease program at Rajasthan, we've been across in different parts, different places, and different meetings. Just to say that, yes, we have been able to really get exposed to a large group of people with big backgrounds to help develop the program. Another important thing that we did at the state level was to develop a working group. And we had our first meeting of the working group in the year 2019. And we had 10 multidisciplinary physicians, because we also realized that you need to have participation from people from different super specialties too. We had endocrinologists, we had neurologists, we had genetics, we had pulmonologists, and we have internal person from internal medicine. And then we have Dr. Kuldeep from the genetic background, pediatrics and genetics. Then we had the state government headed by the director for the child health, who was part of the program. So it was a conglomerate group of people who had a common interest in the field of rare diseases. Then subsequently, we did the second meeting in the year 2020. And again, it was a big success, and increasing the sensitization or increasing the sensitivity amongst the people in the state of Rajasthan. We were able to share our experiences from different parts, and this network has become very active and effective. And in the process of developing the rare disease program, we also were supported in developing the Center of Excellence concept at the hospital at J. Kenon. The All India Institute of Medical Sciences at Jodhpur again is a center of excellence for genetic diseases, and Dr. Kuldeep heads the program. And they have other great achievements to their credit. They were also defined as the DBT Nidan Kendra, launched by the Health Minister in September 2019. Then they've been part of the Genome India project, cataloging the genetic variations in Indians, launched in the February 2020. Then we have the other medical school, that's the medical school at Udaipur. The principal of the medical school, Dr. Lakhan Poswal, is also involved in the rare disease program. So what has happened is across the state of Rajasthan, we were able to create a wave, an impact, and a network to help each other understand the problems and support the problem. At the same time, when we are thinking of promoting the concept of rare diseases, as has been identified time and again, that you need a lot of state patronage for making the treatment accessible, making the treatment easily available, and to help the diagnostics pick up. And that is where we had the state governor who launched our public education program, and this is he was also instrumental in making these posters available to all the primary health centers in the state. So we now have a network and a source of communication to these people. The center in my own institute, we were one of those who gave Restiplam for one of the patients with spinal muscular atrophy. We had one of those very rare patients who was a combination of SMA with Pompe. Again, a newborn picked up early. So what has happened is, because of the availability of an organized educational program at the medical school, we've been able to pick up things, pick up diseases early. We have been able to really produce a lot of consultants who are more sensitive to the fact. And so that today, JKLN today has a number of different studies which have happened. And just to highlight some of them, we've been doing screening for Gaucher patients in patients with unexplained splenomegaly and thrombocytopenia, and our pickup rate is 2.7%, which is reasonably good. And then we've been doing genotype-phenotype correlation for DMDs and the screening for various disorders. There's another interesting event that, as part of the rare disease working group in the state of Rajasthan, that we did was, again, the interest was to create a social, political, and scientific awareness for rare diseases. And this is one of those rare experience of having 2,500 children to develop a human formation of the rare disease logo, which is a different kind of experience. And the point is that we were just trying to really create such a thing because we wanted a focus from the society, from the scientific community, and from the political leaders to understand the importance and significance. And we were one of those first few in the country to have launched our own rare disease registry. We started this in the year 2016, and we have continued with the registry. And we are now also wanting to share all our registry patients with the national program. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Apologies for interrupting in between. Please conclude because of the tight schedule. Thank you.
Okay. So anyway, the point is that we have extensive cases, extensive problem, and our red list is full of rare disease patients, and very soon we're going to be doing all that. And the intent is to just say that yes, it has been a slightly organized program, and we've been able to deliver many things. We had the state chief minister with us. We are doing a lot of research projects. We are also responsible to take care of the legal and other issues, and we are supporting the government in that, and that is what has brought in a lot of success to it. So it's again a collaborative approach and a team approach in the state of Rajasthan, which is really taking it reasonably fast and ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashok Gupta. For the next speaker, I would like to tell the audience that Dr. Sandeep Singh Gill, who was supposed to be the next speaker, Assistant Director, State Nodal Officer, NPCDCS, at Director Health Services, Punjab, whose talk was going to be on representation from Punjab, couldn't join us today for due to unavoidable reasons. Therefore, we shall be moving forward with the video representation from UP. Dr. Shubha Rao Phadke, Professor and Head, Department of Medical Genetics, Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Lucknow. I request team support to please pull up the video of Dr. Shubha Rao Phadke.
Genetic disorders are very rare and they account for almost 80% of the rare disorders. Hence, I am very happy to be a part of this program and be working with the patients with rare disorders. The rare disorders are always neglected, and that's why they need special attention. And happy that now government policymakers are giving attention to them. There are two aspects of it. One is to train doctors and to create awareness amongst doctors for these rare disorders, for the treatment of these rare disorders. And second is to treat the patients with genetic disorders, to provide genetic counseling, screening for these rare disorders, and as well as work with the patient support groups for these rare genetic disorders. Genetics disorders are not organ based special disorders. Like if a patient gets pain in abdomen, patient knows he has to go to gastroenterologist. If patient gets chest pain, then he knows that he has to go to cardiologist. Genetic disorders can involve any system of the body, and hence what is important for any clinician, any pediatrician, obstetrician, orthopedician, anybody, cancer specialist, to realize that the patient who has come to him or her may be because of genetic disorders. So clinical suspicion at the level of primary care physician or even the specialist has to be there so that they can identify patients and families with genetic disorders and refer to the appropriate specialist for taking care of their illness in the form of treatment of the patient. Or many genetic disorders still are rare, hence genetic counseling and prevention by prenatal diagnosis still play an important role. So to create awareness amongst the clinicians as well as train them for diagnosis and treatment of common genetic problems, our department has been running a 2-week long program which was initially supported by Indian Council of Medical Research, and these ICMR courses on medical genetics and genetic counseling over last 20 years. We had 18 programs, and through that we have trained hundreds of clinicians all over India, and they are again our ambassadors in the medicine, and they are identifying, treating patients with genetic disorders, and also playing an important role in creating awareness about rare genetic disorders. So once these doctors are ready and then the patients are getting identified, so we need their treatment, and such groups are very important to create availability of the treatment. The treatments are developed by scientists, and now we have seen the success stories for spinal muscular atrophy as well as many other disorders, enzyme replacement therapies for lysosomal storage disorders, that the treatments are becoming available. But to reach the treatments to the patients, one important theory is the logistic as well as cost. And here, the patient support groups or other NGOs play a very important role. And I would like to share here that since last 30 years, we had this thalassemia and hemophilia patient support groups, Hemophilia Federation of India and Thalassemics India. They had their various branches in many major cities, and these patient support groups have played a very important role in creating policymakers to provide free treatment to these patients with thalassemia and hemophilia. And now our patients in our hospital and many states get free treatment for thalassemia and hemophilia. And hemophilia drugs are very costly. So these free treatment from government supported programs has really changed the outcome of these patients, and the now treatment has become very easy for them. These are the success stories which evolved over last 2 decades or 3 decades, and these really are very important landmark stones in the history of rare genetic disorders in India. Because these things happen gradually. But now, because of once it has happened for thalassemia and hemophilia,
So that was. So you just heard to Dr. Shubha Rao Phadke, Professor and Head Department of Medical Genetics from Lucknow. Um, Now let us move forward to the question answers round. I would request all our eminent panelists to please come on the stage so that we can move forward for the question answers round. We have lost Dr. Madhulika ma'am due to internet connectivity issues. Therefore, I shall be taking it up. Um, we're waiting for Dr. Nir Gupta ma'am to please turn on her camera. Ma'am, if you can hear me, please turn on your camera. Thank you. All right, so let's move.
Will be joining if she's trying. Yeah.
Madhulika ma'am.
Yeah, she's trying because of the internet issues. She's not able to join.
All right, all right. We can start taking up the question. I would thank the audience members for actively participating and sending us few questions. So we have open-ended questions. Any of the panelists can take it up. So the first question is that how does government seek to support the catastrophic expenditure involved for families dealing with rare diseases? So anyone can take it up. I may now repeat the question since we have more speakers joining in. The question is, how does government seek to support the catastrophic expenditure involved for families dealing with rare diseases? So, Dr. Ashok Gupta, if you want to take it up.
Would you please just repeat? It's how does the government?
How does the government seek to support the catastrophic expenditure involved for families dealing with their rare diseases?
There are two things that are happening. One is the Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi, which gives 15 lakh rupees to any applicant for in a year's time. So one of the mechanism is that yes, you can apply to the Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi and get reimbursement to that. The another thing is we are waiting for the national policy to be in place. And once the national policy is in place, I think we'll have a much larger financial support available. Then another thing that people can always look forward to the government is the way we have been able to do it in the state of Rajasthan. Because I said we really involved the leadership, and very recently that I have been told that the government is seriously thinking of supporting all our LSD patients for their complete for their therapy. So it's going to be it's just the understanding by the government and sensitization of the government that the government can give you funds. And all said and done, the budgets usually are not less. It's only a matter of making the bureaucracy and the politicians understand. Yes, these patients need support.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashok Gupta. The next question is for Dr. Ratnapuri ma'am. The question is basic emergency obstetric and newborn care and comprehensive emergency obstetric and newborn care units have algorithm to clinically identify genetics disorder. Can this be considered?
Yes, definitely. For the disorders, like I said, that present with a sepsis-like illness, and that's the commonest presentation in the neonatal nursery, we can have algorithms which will lead us to the correct diagnosis. So it's only a question of awareness. That is what is important. But yes, algorithms will go a long way to help in making a diagnosis at least.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for it. Dr. Madhulika Kabra ma'am has joined us again.
Chronic
So I made
issues. Yeah. So there is another question. Maybe Dr. Inusha would like to answer. What kind of changes and adaptations would need to be done to start clinical trials in India? Maybe Dr. Nirja can also partially answer, or Dr. Inusha can answer, because Nirja talked about the treatment aspects. Inusha, would you like to say something?
Actually, the funding, yes. The funding agencies at present, now they have some priorities. Earlier, actually, the physicians or the researchers, they used to apply for different projects, and then the projects were sanctioned according to the topic which the researchers have submitted. But nowadays the DBT has outlined some priorities. ICMR has also advertised call for proposals in inborn errors of metabolism. So it is a matter of changing the priorities and focusing on the studies which will give some clinical aspect or have some further clinical application. So basic only funding basic research is not important. So one should also focus on the clinical research and also the development of therapies for the patients, especially nowadays with rare disorders, because this is a neglected area for quite long time. And new form of therapies are being developed in the Western countries. So we should also try to develop some of these therapies in our own country.
Okay, thank you, Nirja. Would you like to say a few words on this?
So I think for conducting a clinical trial, it is important that the application is taken in a very fast track manner. So that is probably being adapted by DCGI and other agents, other bodies, government bodies. So which is one important step. And as Dr. Anisha said, that the various government agencies are putting call for proposals for for therapy research as well. So clinical trials will definitely will come up in a big way, but we need to involve basic scientist and the clinician so that it can be translated to the patients.
Saad, if there are no more questions, do we have time for one message each from all the speakers? Very
Definitely,
short
ma'am. If that can
speakers.
be brief. Yes, ma'am. If
Okay,
that can be brief.
to begin with, Ratna,
Okay.
one message, yes.
To increase awareness. We cannot have screening or diagnosis or any kind of approach without awareness. So I think that's the
Okay.
key as far as I'm concerned.
Very good, great message. So, second, Dr. Nirja, what is the message?
So I think to have a multidisciplinary clinic and supportive management to start with, and to improve the therapeutics
Seems like a connectivity issue. We can proceed to Dr. Inusha for the closing comments. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Dr. Inusha, ma'am, please unmute
Yes.
yourself.
So, incorporation of genetics is important in the MBBS curriculum, so that the doctors, the budding doctors, are sensitized regarding the importance of genetics in the different disorders that affect different systems of the body. So, initial sensitization will help to help them to carry forward the different important messages and take up a career in genetics, and they can help all the departments, because the geneticist deals with all type of disorders.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Inusha.
Now,
Dr. Ashok
Seema,
Gupta.
Dr. Seema. Okay, Dr.
I'll
Seema.
just say that.
Okay,
Yeah, see you.
Dr. Seema. Doesn't matter.
I think already stressed. I think awareness of undergraduates, postgraduates, senior teachers, senior faculty members, awareness of PSUs, awareness of corporates, own and an experience sharing. I think it's going to be the key to actually have a good ultimate rare disease network. Funds can only come once you have seen the results of one. So if one PSU adopts a child and the success story is given to another PSU, they will definitely think about the things awareness at all levels. And I agree with Dr. Ratna, awareness has to precede almost anything in rare disease.
Okay, thank you, Seema. Now, Dr. Ashok Gupta.
Yeah. So I'll just say that one important message is that collectively rare diseases are not rare. We are probably responsible for the biggest burden of disease in the country, and so the population as at large. If you look at the volume of the number of patients that suffer from rare disease, the message has to go. Rare disease is not rare, so just don't think that they don't need financial support. Since we are the biggest group, the government and the society should think in terms of supporting financially, socially, politically, in every way.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ashok. Shubha is not around, but I would like to thank all the speakers for their very nice presentations and summing up the whole huge thing regarding rare diseases in very, very small presentations. And also we had some idea about the state perspectives, how the state governments are functioning and how we can all work together. So thank you very much, everybody, for a very, very nice session. Over to you, Saad, to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madhulika ma'am, for such a wonderful moderation. Even though, apart from all the network issues, problems of 2021, thank you to Nir Gupta ma'am. Thank you to Dr. Ratna Puri ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Inusha ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Ashok Gupta. Thank you, Dr. Seema Kapoor ma'am. And apart from that, who couldn't even join us today, behalf of PPHF, I would also like to thank Dr. Sandeep Singh Gill, Dr. Shubha Rao Phadke, and all the eminent speakers for adding on to such a wonderful talk. Without waiting any further, let us move ahead. To the audience members, I would like to appreciate your continuous participation with us, and to all the participants members, I would like to now say that we are skipping the break because of the tight schedule, and moving on to the next part of today's consultation, wherein we have a lot of eminent speakers. Some of them are from our partners, Takeda, and all the eminent speakers. We're waiting for them, and they will add on with their own topic of talk. So, team support, if you could move further and add on to the next group of speakers. We have with us Mr. Philip Toll, Head of Access Markets Transformations, ICMEA, Takeda. Um, Dr. Pramod K. Sinha, formerly with the Department of Public Enterprises, top management member of MNCs and Scope, New Delhi. Mr. D.P. Kaushal, uh, CGM SJVN Limited, Shimla. Mr. Saurabh Singh, co-founder cum director, RDIF. Ms. Archana Vashisht Panda, co-founder and director, Patient Advocacy, Cure SMA Foundation of India. Mr. Manjeet Singh, president, LSDSS. Mr. Prasanna Shirol, co-founder and executive director, ORDI. I would like to mention that to the audience members, Mr. Pramod K. Sinha will not be able to join us because of unavoidable issues. And Dr. D.P. Kaushal will be joining us via video interaction. So I may now request Mr. Philip to please unmute himself and take over.
So thank you very much. So good morning, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to present today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of the corporate sector in mobilizing a better rare disease ecosystem. So as Dr. Gupta was mentioning in the last session, rare diseases are not as rare as we may think. Millions of people around the world still lack access to essential medicines and health services for rare diseases. 10% of the global population is affected by rare disease, and 5% or less actually have a chance of getting treatment. The average time to diagnosis is 7 years, and these rare diseases disproportionately affect young children, 30% of them dying before their 5th birthday. And so approaches to rare diseases have often fallen short as a result of being uncoordinated, and they do not consider the entire ecosystem. And so since complex and rare diseases are hard to diagnose, treat, and manage, they can be lifelong and often have greater affordability barriers. The corporate sector needs to consider the whole ecosystem when we're developing our strategies. And we as Takeda consider the complete patient journey, from prevention, awareness, screening and diagnosis to treatment and patient support. And we look to identify gaps across that patient journey, and then look to identify opportunities to strengthen health systems to address those gaps. And we do so across 3 core pillars. Firstly, around collaborating or looking to collaborate with policymakers. Secondly, looking to develop innovative affordability programs that make our medicines or potentially diagnostics more affordable to these patients. And that could be a cost sharing between Takeda, government, and often in some instances, patient or other parties. And then number 3, building long-term capacity. And what I mean by that is, for instance, strengthening HCPs, upskilling them, also looking to put in place diagnostic programs. And we do this across low and low middle income countries and across all our chosen therapeutic areas. So we take this approach across all of them: oncology, rare diseases, PDT, gastrointestinal, and neuroscience. And a critical part of what we do is to look to measure the results of the activities that we have ongoing on the ground, so we can ensure we understand the impact and that they are actually delivering impact. So we as a corporate sector also need to recognize that if we're going to be successful, we cannot work alone. And so we need to work closely with organizations such as patient organizations who are specialized in raising awareness, and they can contribute their knowledge of social circumstances of patients. We also need to work closely with HCPs, looking to develop potential centers of excellence, and who can also then train other physicians. In addition to that, we need to work with other key stakeholders, including non-governmental organizations. We need to, those NGOs could potentially have activities already ongoing on the ground, and we should be looking to align with those activities so we don't have different activities going across and often duplicating. Then we as the private sector, we need to look for, to put in place innovative access models to make our medicines more affordable. And we should also be looking to partner in capacity building. And then lastly, and most importantly, we should be looking to partner with government, policymakers, payers, and regulators to ensure we are aligned with their strategies. And so what we as Takeda have done is we've developed this concept of the blueprint, where we look to bring together key stakeholders who can collaborate to address specific health challenges. The first one that we did was, which we termed the Global Blueprint for Success, was held in 2016 in Geneva, and we brought over 150 global experts together from various sectors and industries to look to mobilize a collaborative action to address challenges on non-communicable diseases. And in addition to that, we've also put in place local blueprint initiatives where we've looked to bring local stakeholders together, for instance, in Mexico, to look to identify opportunities to work together in supporting universal health coverage and other health system strengthening initiatives. In Brazil, we brought people together to look for opportunities to work together to develop a more robust public health system and address bottlenecks. In India, we're bringing people together around collaborating and bringing solutions for awareness and diagnosis and treatment of rare diseases. In South Africa, again, bringing people together to generate awareness around lymphoma and driving improved diagnosis. And then lastly, in Kenya, we have brought people together around mobilizing collaborative action to address non-communicable diseases. And so I'm going to delve into this particular one in Kenya into a little bit more detail, as it's probably the most advanced of all of them that we have in place at this point in time. And so when we got together as key stakeholders in this non-communicable diseases space in Kenya, we identified specific challenges. NCDs were responsible for 35% of all deaths in Kenya. The incidence rates of NCDs accounted for over 50% of total hospital deaths. There were gaps across the entire patient journey, and there was a very uncoordinated approach on the ground in terms of the activities that were actually happening. And so as a coordinated effort or as a partnership, we came up with this concept of the Blueprint for Innovative Healthcare, where as this partnership, we look to work together to strengthen the health system for non-communicable diseases across the entire patient journey: awareness, screening and diagnosis, treatment, and patient support. And each partner had a specific component related to their area of specialities that they focused on, but we coordinated and we communicated to make sure we were all aligned on our activities. And it's still very early days in this particular program, but to date, we've screened over 8,000 people for cancer, diabetes, and hypertension. 100% of those people diagnosed with NCDs on this program are currently receiving treatment. And we've trained and assessed over 1,000 community healthcare workers. Then in terms of next steps, we'll look to introduce, or we'll look to expand this particular program within Kenya, but we'll also look to introduce it into new markets. And we're already looking at Rwanda, Tanzania, and we can potentially broaden such a type of initiative beyond just Africa. And this is just to give you an idea of the amount of partners involved in this particular initiative. We have individuals or organizations on the ground that are actually delivering the activities. So for instance, AMREF Health Africa are raising the awareness in the community, whereas International Cancer Institute, for instance, are very much focusing on diagnostics and treatment. But then in addition to these people that are actually actively on the ground working, there are a number of support organizations that are supporting in various ways. For instance, Takeda, we have our innovative affordability program to help the affordability around specifically here the oncology medicines, but we've also brought on board other pharmaceutical companies such as Roche. And then obviously a key component of that, as I mentioned earlier, is having government on board. And so we have both the national government and the local county and government involved in every activity that we're then doing. And we honestly believe that the long-term sustainability of our programs is underpinned by these strategic partnerships. So thank you. And yeah, we look forward to continuing to work with you in addressing the gaps for people living with rare diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Philip. We would like to apologize on our end because of logistical issues. We announced that Mr. Pramod K. Sinha will not be joining us. Our deepest apologies for that. Pardon me. Next speaker, therefore, will be Mr. Pramod K. Sinha, formerly with Department of Public Enterprises, top management member of MNCs and Scope, New Delhi. And the talk, he will be speaking on PSUs, the key stakeholder in creating health avenues. I may request Mr. Pramod K. Sinha to please address to the audience, and apologies for the misinformation. Apologies for the misinformation. So, we can
I share or not?
Definitely, we can see you, sir, and hear you. You may now continue.
Have you got my slide, or can I share from here?
Definitely, we can see you, sir, and hear you. You may now continue.
Have you got my slide, or can I share from here?
We can see your slide, sir. Please continue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. It has always been delighting to support the endeavor of People Health Foundation. And why echoing? Please echoing.
Sir, if there is another device which is logged in, please turn off that device. If you are using two devices, turn one of them off from where you're not using the camera. Sir, if there is another device which is logged in, please turn off that device.
Noise.
Two devices, turn one of them off from where.
Already done.
Okay, sir. Sir, please close all the other tabs as well. If there are other tabs on your computer, please close the other tabs. Okay. Sir, please close all the other tabs as well. If there are other tabs on your computer, please close the other tabs. Please continue, sir. We can get back to it, sir, if you request. We can reschedule and you can join back again.
This screen is shared by you or by me? It's not clear because it's not moving.
Sir, you have to request to change the tab. It is shared by us. So if you want to go to the next slide, just say
Yes,
next slide,
please,
please.
please, please.
Okay. Sir, you have to request to change the tab. It is shared by us. So if you want to go to the next slide, just say next slide, please. Okay.
As many of the eminent health professionals have already conveyed, this rare disease needs more and more. It's again something problem here.
Yeah, sir. I would request you to please exit the delegate link and we can get back to you as soon as we can. Sorry to the audience members for that technical glitch. Seems to happen in 2020 a lot because of the virtual platform. Moving ahead, without further ado, we will have Mr. Pramod K. Sinha back again with us. Mr. D.P. Kaushal, Chief General Manager of SJVN Limited Shimla, will be joining us via a video speaking upon the current scope of PSUs in health sector and potential to explore newer health areas. I request support team to please play the video of Mr. D.P. Kaushal.
सर्वप्रथम आज के इस कार्यक्रम में सभी श्रोताओं को मेरा सादर नमस्कार। SJVN लिमिटेड की स्थापना 24 मई 1988 को भारत सरकार एवं हिमाचल प्रदेश सरकार के संयुक्त उपक्रम के रूप में हुई थी। SJVN की कुल पोर्टफोलियो 7,690 मेगावाट है। SJVN की यात्रा जल विद्युत क्षेत्र में 1500 मेगावाट के नाथपा झाकड़ी हाइड्रो पावर स्टेशन से हिमाचल प्रदेश में ऊर्जा उत्पादन के साथ शुरू हुई थी। ये परियोजना देश की सबसे बड़ी भूमिगत परियोजना है। वर्तमान में SJVN हाइड्रो के अलावा सोलर, विंड क्षेत्र में निर्बाध रूप से 2016.51 मेगावाट विद्युत उत्पादन कर रहा है। इसके अलावा SJVN थर्मल और ट्रांसमिशन में भी विस्तार कर चुका है। देश के 8 राज्यों और देश से बाहर नेपाल और भूटान में SJVN की 3,356 मेगावाट की परियोजनाएं निर्माणाधीन है। 588 मेगावाट की परियोजनाएं निर्माण पूर्व एवं निवेश अनुमोदनाधीन है और 2,231 मेगावाट की परियोजनाएं सर्वे और इन्वेस्टिगेशन के अंतर्गत है। SJVN का लक्ष्य 2023 तक 5,000 मेगावाट, 2030 तक 12,000 मेगावाट तथा 2040 तक 25,000 मेगावाट कंपनी बनने का है। SJVN हमेशा से अपने सामाजिक उत्तरदायित्वों के निर्वहन के लिए प्रतिबद्ध रहा है। कंपनी अधिनियम 2013 के अंतर्गत SJVN अपनी CSR नीति लागू की है और इसमें समय समय पर संशोधन होता रहा है। SJVN मूलतः अपनी CSR गतिविधियों को 6 वर्टिकल में क्रियान्वित करता है। सबसे महत्वपूर्ण वर्टिकल है स्वास्थ्य एवं स्वच्छता। जैसा कि DP गाइडलाइंस के मुताबिक CSR बजट का 60% हिस्सा भारत सरकार द्वारा निर्धारित वार्षिक थीम पर करना होता है। इस वर्ष ये थीम स्वास्थ्य देखभाल एवं पोषण है। तो SJVN स्वास्थ्य के क्षेत्र में अभूतपूर्व कार्य कर रहा है। मोबाइल हेल्थ वैन, स्वास्थ्य शिविरों का आयोजन और महिला एवं विकास के विशेष कार्यक्रम SJVN द्वारा इसके परियोजना क्षेत्रों में किए जाते हैं। एस्पायरेशनल डिस्ट्रिक्ट परियोजना के तहत SJVN चंबा जिला में स्कूल शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य देखभाल एवं पोषण के तहत महत्वपूर्ण स्वास्थ्य गतिविधियां क्रियान्वित कर रहा है। स्वच्छता कार्यक्रम के तहत स्वच्छ विद्यालय अभियान में एसजेवीएन ने 2421 शौचालयों का निर्माण विभिन्न स्कूलों में किया है। शिक्षा एवं कौशल विकास के तहत मेधावी बच्चों को छात्रवृत्ति और युवाओं की तकनीकी प्रशिक्षण के लिए तकनीकी संस्थानों में प्रायोजित किया जाता है। आईटीआई संस्थानों के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट के लिए एसजेवीएन हिमाचल प्रदेश के 5 तकनीकी संस्थानों को वित्तीय सहायता प्रदान कर रहा है और अपने परियोजना क्षेत्र में भी एसजेवीएन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और कम्युनिटी डेवलपमेंट के लिए अनुदान देकर दूर दराज के ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों की सुविधाओं को सुदृढ़ कर रहा है। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के तहत एसजेवीएन जल संरक्षण के अंतर्गत बावड़ियों एवं जलाशय का संरक्षण करके महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभा रहा है। हिमाचल प्रदेश में सांस्कृतिक विरासतों के संरक्षण के लिए एसजेवीएन ने वित्तीय अनुदान देकर विरासत को संरक्षित करने में अहम रोल अदा किया है। प्राकृतिक आपदाओं के दौरान एसजेवीएन हमेशा से लोगों को वित्तीय अनुदान देता रहा है। आज की संगोष्ठी पीपल टू पीपल हेल्थ फाउंडेशन एवं यूनियन टेरिटरी ऑफ चंडीगढ़ द्वारा संयुक्त रूप से स्वास्थ्य विषय पर आयोजित की जा रही है, जिसका फोकस रेयर डिजीज है। स्वास्थ्य क्षेत्र में एसजेवीएन द्वारा किए जा रहे कार्यों पर विस्तार से बोलने से पहले मैं पीपल टू पीपल हेल्थ फाउंडेशन की सराहना करना चाहूँगा कि ये संस्था पोषण, नॉन कम्युनिकेबल डिजीज, पर्यावरण, इन्फेक्शियस डिजीज और महिला एवं बाल स्वास्थ्य पर महत्वपूर्ण कार्य कर रही है। वर्तमान में ये संस्था भारत में रेयर डिजीज एवं मैनेजमेंट पर अर्थपूर्ण भूमिका निभा रही है। मैं आपको इस तथ्य से अवगत कराना चाहूँगा कि परियोजना क्षेत्र के लोगों को उनके घर द्वार पर बेहतर स्वास्थ्य सुविधा उपलब्ध कराने के मकसद से एसजेवीएन की सतलुज संजीवनी सेवा के अंतर्गत 13 मोबाइल मेडिकल यूनिट 4 राज्यों के 11 जिलों में 108 पंचायतों की 242 सामुदायिक क्षेत्रों में लोगों को स्वास्थ्य लाभ पहुंचा रही है। इसके अलावा ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में विशेष डॉक्टरों की टीम से गायनी, ऑर्थो, आइज और अन्य विशेष स्वास्थ्य शिविर लगाए जाते हैं। जैसा कि आज की संगोष्ठी रेयर डिजीज पर है, मैं आपको अवगत करवाना चाहूँगा कि एसजेवीएन इंडियन एसोसिएशन फॉर मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी हिमाचल प्रदेश सोलन में मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी सेंटर यानी मानव मंदिर के निर्माण के लिए वित्तीय सहायता दे रहा है। मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी एक अनुवांशिक रोग है जिसमें शरीर की स्केलेटल मसल्स कमजोर होने लगती है, जिसमें व्यक्ति चलने फिरने में असमर्थ हो जाता है और पैरालिसिस जैसी स्थिति पैदा हो जाती है। मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी के लिए कोई इलाज नहीं है, हालांकि इसे रोकने के लिए फिजियोथेरेपी, हाइड्रोथेरेपी, स्पीच थेरेपी का सहारा लिया जा रहा है और दिव्यांग उपकरण जैसे व्हीलचेयर, स्टैंडिंग फ्रेम की सहायता भी ली जाती है। इंडियन एसोसिएशन ऑफ मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी वर्ष 1992 से भारत के विभिन्न हिस्सों और हिमाचल प्रदेश में मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी के रोगियों के लिए कार्य करने वाली पंजीकृत संस्था है। और इस संस्था की महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि इस संस्था का ऑर्गेनाइज जो किया जा रहा है वो ऑर्गेनाइजर्स स्वयं ही इस बीमारी से ग्रसित है। एसजेवीएन के सहयोग से इस संस्था ने सोलन में 50 बेड के अनुसंधान एवं पुनर्वास केंद्र का निर्माण किया है, जो कि मस्कुलर डिस्ट्रॉफी से संघर्ष कर रहे रोगियों को स्वास्थ्य लाभ पहुंचा रहे हैं। वर्ष 2017 से लेकर अब तक 884 मरीजों ने इस सेंटर में उपचार सुविधाओं का लाभ लिया है। डिस्ट्रॉफी मरीजों के लिए अभी तक कुल 114 शिविरों का आयोजन किया जा चुका है, जिसमें कुल 1785 लोगों ने भाग लिया है। अंत में कहना चाहूँगा कि SJVN की CSR के अंतर्गत किए गए कार्यों को नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल फोरम पे सराहना की गई है और इसके लिए कई अवार्ड भी मिले हैं।
Thank you so much, Team Support, for playing the video. That was Mr. D.P. Kaushal. We have been able to rejoin with Mr. Pramod K. Sinha, formerly with Department of Public Enterprises, top management member of MNCs and Scope New Delhi. Is going to be speaking upon PSU's key stakeholder in creating health avenues. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
So we can share your slide, and you, whenever you want to change the slide, you can say.
So please start the slide.
Sure.
Dear eminent health professionals, as a professional who served almost all platform of the country, be it Government of India, be it public sectors, be it world-class MNCs or Indian private sector. So I got an opportunity to see the spectrum and various dimensions. As many of the eminent doctor, be it Dr. Ashok Gupta or others, have rightly pointed out, the world is of creating a collaborative environment between key stakeholders, health professionals, health missions, and other stakeholders of society who could be donor, who could be beneficiary, and who could be needy person looking forward to some support, and organizations like People to People Health Foundation who are taking benevolent initiative like this in support from health missions like today Chandigarh Health Services. Last time it was Eastern region. Unless and until we see these requirements on national platform or vision as India, we will be always lagging behind. The moment we see any state, any particular territory, any particular district, we will always be lagging behind. And as rightly also said Dr. Ashok Gupta, these diseases are no more rare diseases looking at the size of population this country has. As you could see, there have been medical advancements and breakthroughs by virtue of honest, dedicated, and sincere health professionals and research scholars. Unless we give due attention to supporting collaborative environment to promote research and development, we will not be able to reach to that stage when rare diseases will no more be rare disease. Facilities and amenities for rare disease will not be seen as a hardship, and the challenge of getting fund will no more be a bottleneck. What we require is connecting with various stakeholders of the society. Even while framing the policy, government looked that prospective corporate donors has to be connected or approached. We can debate the amount sanctioned on 15 lakhs for beneficiary. We can keep on debating. But question is not simply on Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi, which is a very small portion. If we look at connecting our stakeholders, we can create a huge corpus. And what today is required is organizations like People to People Health Foundation or health missions need to understand the present perspective and how the issues of CSR can be placed in a manner that rare health also falls into that. If you look at the funding mechanism provided by various PSCs, can you go to next slide, please? From 2014 to 19 alone, 1 lakh crore mark has been towards CSR and around 69,800 crore has already been spent. In 18-19 only, as could be seen by corporates listed with NSE, the corpus was 11,961 crore. And top 10 companies alone would contribute close to 36% of the CSR spends. If you look at public sectors, only 150 PSCs could contribute to the tune of close to 4,000 crore. And the areas have been health, education, skill development, all Schedule 7 activities. So health is prominently addressed by PSCs in their CSR activities. As you could hear from one of our colleagues from PSC, Mr. D.P. Kausal, Chief General Manager, SJVN. They are also doing and contributing towards rare disease also. What is required is we need to understand the mechanism of CSR by virtue of which the health missions and even organizations going on research and development can also approach and connect with these PSCs to have some funding arrangements. Besides, the applicability of CSR provisioning for companies which are not entitled or covered under Companies Act is another area which today or tomorrow government might have to see how to get that into this bracket, which can further enhance around 1,000 crore per annum. Next slide, please. Just you can have a look of some of the CSR spent during 18-19 and some of the top companies who are contributing significantly in the CSR. This can help to have a close understanding of health missions, health professionals, and organizations like People to People Health Foundation, who are the prospective donors or who are the prospective corporates, and they are both from public and private. A country like India cannot survive without presence of both public and private sectors in any area, including health. And that's why it is always better to have a better understanding of the corporates, of the stakeholders, of the mechanism by virtue of which the health missions can connect with these stakeholders. Next slide, please. This again shows the activity, Schedule 7 activity. The audience and the eminent speakers might be aware, the Companies Act provides for CSR spends under the Schedule 7 activities, and these are the listed areas where Schedule 7 activities are being carried out, and CSR is applicable in these areas. If you look at the SDGs, our CSR activities are designed in a manner it also addresses SDGs, including health. If you look at the quantum of spent by PSCs in different areas, you will see the maximum corpus goes to hunger and health, almost 34% of the PSC CSR corpus. And similarly in other areas where the stakeholders, including health missions, can approach PSCs and can get connected. Next slide, please. These are the figures in terms of percentage. As I said, 34% in health and hunger. Similarly, in other areas you can see. And these are all based on Schedule 7 activities under which various PSUs are expending or incurring their corpus. Next slide, please. For stakeholders, it is also essential to know, as one of my colleagues conveyed about SJVN, how SJVN has been performing, the areas they are working. From 5 PSU in 1951, this trajectory has reached to 348 in 2019, with an investment from 29 crore to 16,40,628 crore. And this, you can see that this is the volume of investments and contributions by PSCs in the national exchequer. Next slide, please. This you can see what is the paid up capital, what is the financial investment, what is capital employed, what is income generated by PSCs, and even contribution to national exchequer. And these are very significant figures which has made public sectors as temple of the nation. It is essential to understand these contributions in the growth of the nation and socio-economic structure of the country. Next slide, please. These are, as you might be aware, to enhance managerial and financial autonomy, government has given certain privilege in terms of Maharatnas, Navratnas, and Mini Ratnas. And it is essential to have a close understanding by stakeholders also, including health missions, so that they can closely understand and approach the right PSCs for any support. These are the 10 Maharatnas. Next slide, please. These are 14 Navratnas and 61 and 12, 73 Mini Ratnas. These PSCs has granted special autonomy, and by privilege of that, they are free to contribute to certain areas. and they have good quantum of profit and reserves which they can contribute for the society. Next slide, please. You must be aware, still I just thought to touch upon, the section 135 of Companies Act, which provides for 2% average net profit for CSR. At the same time, the mechanism of PSCs by virtue of which they contribute to CSR need to be understood by various stakeholders, be it constitution of a CSR committee by the board, and preference given to the local areas and areas where they operate. At the same time, they are also free to contribute to other areas where they feel that it's a national priority or priority of the society. Next slide, please. These are the activities under Schedule 7. You can always get it from anywhere. I just thought to briefly touch upon, which includes touching upon all the SDGs. If you look at hunger, poverty, these are all part of SDGs. Next slide, please. These are the remaining areas of Schedule 7 activities.
Sir?
Next slide, please. It is prudent to mention that public sectors have always been the torchbearers. Even in the recent pandemic, public sectors could contribute close to 2,500 crore to PM's Care Fund. And these are the list of the PSCs you can see which contributed more than 100 crore to this fund. So this signifies that whenever there have been crises and whenever there is need of the society, public sectors have always come forward and contributed to the betterment of the society. The health missions, therefore, can plan their fund requirement and approach the public sectors. They can also approach Department of Public Enterprises, who is the nodal government department of Government of India, which monitors, and fortunately I had served that department and ministry also during my government tenure, which can create a kind of national policy or which can support the national policy framed by Government of India for rare disease. And
Definitely.
the health areas can find place of rare disease as well. Next slide,
Definitely.
please.
Sir?
Is time limit?
Yes, sir. So apologies for that I've
So
skipped.
I'm just concluding now.
Yeah, sure.
So the whole purpose of joining this forum was to support the endeavor of health missions, sharing the experiences, because I have served all the platforms, sharing the experiences, how the stakeholders can be connected, understanding the mechanism by virtue of which they can connect with CSR and approaching PSCs. And wherever they feel any stakeholders, my contact details are with People to People Fund Foundation also. I'll be happy to support endeavor of any health mission in this national and noble cause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Mr. Pramod Kumar Sinha, sir. Thank you so much for your time and for that extended and continuous support. Moving forward, I would now like to call upon our next speaker, which is Mr. Saurabh Singh, who is the co-founder cum director of RDIF. He will be speaking on journey of a parent and what it led to. I may now request Mr. Saurabh Singh. I will also request Sir to please keep it brief, taking into consideration the time limit. Thank you.
Yeah. Good noon, everyone, and to all the honorable speakers. Thank you, Takeda and PPHF for organizing such a great platform. Today, my name is Saurabh Singh, and I am a co-founder cum director of Rare Diseases India Foundation, RDIF.
Today, I will discuss why this organization and these patient advocacy group came into the existence. Beyond this organization, I am a parent of a rare disease child. My son Shaurya, he is suffering from one of the rare disease called Hunter syndrome, MPS 2. It was the time when I get married in 2010. My struggles start when my son was diagnosed with MPS 2 in the year 2014. It was the time to live happily with the family, but things was very different for me. Like parents of a rare disease child is very different from others. My son got diagnosed in the year 2014 when we suspected that his size of head is not normal. So we visited many doctors and hospitals in Jharkhand and Bihar also, but no doctor and hospital diagnosed that my son is suffering from such kind of disease. My relatives asked me to go to visit some higher center, and after some time I booked my ticket and visited CMC Vellore. That point of time I was working with a multinational banking company, and getting leave in the month of March from bank, it's a really very tough. But I was dedicatedly thought that I have to go anyhow. So I visited there. And after 15 days of diagnosis, he was finally diagnosed that he is suffering from MPS 2, Hunter syndrome. And there is no medicine for this disease. And the severity of disease is very bad. We were really surprised to hear this, and we could not believe this. And again, I visited AIIMS New Delhi for reconfirmation of the disease, that we could not believe that how my son can suffer from this disease. And there also, it was diagnosed that it is right, Shaurya is suffering from MPS 2. And we returned from AIIMS to my house and thought how it will happen. How can I get the access of the medicine? Because that medicine was under trial. And after some time, I got to know that the price of the medicine is very high. So we were hopeless that the cost of the therapy was in crores. So I was blank. I was very surprised how I will go forward. I started writing letters to the Prime Minister, President, Chief Minister, Health Secretary, every stakeholders. But the reply was same. They said that there is no such policy in India. Through that, you will get the treatment for such a costly disease, costly medicine. So after some time, I was surfing in the internet for rare diseases. I just came to know that there is a LSDSS, lysosomal storage disorder support society, who is working for these diseases in India. And I immediately called on the given number, and fortunately, the Honorable President, Mr. Manjeet Singh, picked up the call, and he guided me very properly. And I was invited for rare disease seminar in 28th February. So we visited AIIMS in 2015 for international seminar, and after that I got to know that not only me, there are so many people suffering from these diseases, and I got some kind of peace of mind that I'm not alone. There are people who are suffering from these kind of rare diseases. We can raise our voice together. So I was started working for this community for 2-3 years, and in the meantime, I get very close to the many rare disease families. And at that point of time, I decided that I have to do for these communities because these are untouched areas. government is not focusing there. So I started working hard, and finally I decided to file a case in Jharkhand High Court. So I filed a case in Jharkhand High Court against Government of India, Minister of Health and Family Welfare, and Jharkhand government for under Article 21 right to life, because it is the right to life for any citizen of India. I moved forward. There are many other court cases were pending in different high courts, and slowly the high courts started ordering, passed order in the favor of rare disease, and the national rare disease policy came into existence in June 2017. Jharkhand High Court also passed an order to give treatment under rare disease policy, but the government could not, unfortunately. Now this was the matter of contempt of court, and after some time my case gone to Supreme Court for the very first time, and from there I get some kind of relief for only 1 month therapy. Now still this case is under sub judice in Jharkhand High Court, and I'm still fighting for this policy, and from there I thought that I have to do more hard work. I have to visit every rural areas where these kind of disease are not, doctors are not aware. In rural areas, parents are not aware about the diseases. So I started awareing the people for these diseases, and also to the doctor and the hospital. So I came up with this Rare Disease India Foundation, and this foundation is also working for rare disease patients and the families. And I would like to say that the life of a parent's life of a rare disease patients is very tough, because everybody has the challenges in their life, but just think about the parents, the pain about the parents which they are undergoing these days. Without policy, they are seeing their child going through these pain, going to the, I can't explain these things because it's very painful to share all these things. So I would like to appeal to the government of India. So please make an effective policy so that all the citizens, all the children get their treatment, because every life counts, and rare disease patients are really very lovely. Just go, the ministry, all the concerned people must meet one rare disease patient for 1 day, and and that point of time they can think that what kind of pain they are going through, and the pain about the parents. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saurabh Singh, for a wonderful and very emotional yet insightful presentation, for a very insightful message to all the stakeholders, all the members in the government or medical paramedical staff who might be watching it today. Thank you so much, Mr. Saurabh Singh, for your wonderful time, and we hope all the best for your initiative. Next up, without moving forward, let us please welcome Ms. Archana Vashisht Panda, co-founder and director, Patient Advocacy, Cure SMA Foundation of India, who will be speaking on seeking multi-stakeholder support in creating a sustainable pathway for newer treatment of SMA. I now request Ms. Archana ma'am to please join of SMA. I now request Ms. Archana ma'am to please join of SMA.
Okay. Am I audible?
I now request ma'am, please close the other tabs on your computer of SMA.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are. Please continue. Welcome.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, ma'am. Please share your screen. Ma'am, if you want, I can present the presentation on your behalf.
Okay, can you present the version 1 which I sent if you have it?
Please come again, ma'am.
Can you share
Okay,
the version
now we
1?
can see. We
You
can
can
see
see?
the presentation now. Yes.
Okay,
Please
great,
continue.
great, great. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, thanks to PPHF and Takeda for coming up with this very important, discussion and bringing this rare disease to the focus, and also talking about to prioritize this, which I think is a need of the hour. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm Archana Panda, representing Cure SMA Foundation of India. I'm the co-founder and patient director patient advocacy with this organization. I have actually divided my presentation into 3 parts. The first part where I would like to share why we need, focus on SMA and why we need to prioritize, why there is an urgent need and why the clock is ticking for us. The second part would be about as a patient advocacy group and as parents, what are we doing about it or what have we done so far, our journey. And then the last two slides would talk about the pathway we believe or we think, could be a sustainable solution as parents, what we, think. So to begin with, I would really, like to, and I fully agree with my previous speaker, Mr. Saurabh, who spoke about, the condition of parents and patients who go through this pain. Talking about SMA, I would like to share that this is such a disease where we feel as if our children are born with a death sentence, because this disease is it's a neuromuscular genetic disorder. It's a progressive disease. It's life threatening, debilitating, and it causes disability. 100% our children go through disability, and slowly, as it is a progressive disease, the disability increases to more than 80%. uh, Also, simple cold and flu, infection could lead to pneumonia and which could be fatal to these children. It becomes so important and so difficult for parents to prevent children to get into a small, a minor cold and flu infection. Every parent, and Saurabh ji has already shared, we live in fear. It's like, especially the parents of the SMA type 1, the most severe form of SMA. The situation is, and I have just, in order to just compare our situation, I have shown these pictures of it, the time bomb and the sand timer here. It's the situation is as if, we are tied to a time bomb and anytime it will just explode. Because these SMA type 1 children, they don't even see their first or second birthday. uh, SMA type 2 children, although they live beyond 2 years of age, but it's their situation is like neither they die nor live, because they go through severe scoliosis of spine. They go through disability. There is a rapid progression. They're confined to wheelchair, and then they have, in order to be able to sit, they have to wear a spinal brace, which is so painful. And they go through multi-organ problems like the core muscles, and then the acid reflux, and they can't eat. And then there is a always compromised lung function due to scoliosis. And there's always a fear. Every night when we sleep, we pray to God that our child does not have this aspiration is something like your food coming up and going into the windpipe. So this, we live in fear. We Every night is a fear for us. Again, these children have very low bone density, and a small injury could lead to fractures. They go through frequent hospitalization. Sometimes they are able to come out of, and every time they are hospitalized, directly they get into ICUs, and some of them go on to ventilator. Only a few come back out of ventilator because they are so weak that they cannot actually come out of ventilator. uh, so this is the pain that we all go through. But these children are very, very brilliant, exceptionally brilliant, and very creative children. And we call them smart children because they also are, SMA, as well as they are very brilliant and very smart children. The type 3 and type 4 patients, they also have their own, because they are able to at least walk a little bit. They are able to go to places, but then they go through a lot of social exclusion. And the type 4s are, by the time they are diagnosed, they're already maybe parent. Imagine the burden of carrying on the family responsibility and the livelihood of the family, and still battling the disease themselves. So that death rate is very high in case of SMA. We lose almost 2 children every month. So since we came up with this organization, we have been losing almost every month 2 patients per month. So which I think death rate is much higher, even maybe than COVID. If you compare, the rate with the population of the number of such patients, that death rate is very high. As we speak today, 2 of our children, as on today, one in Mumbai and one in Coimbatore, they are on ventilator. And maybe some of you have seen this, recent news about this child. Um the parents are educated, so they have been trying to raise funds and to purchase the medicine. But then, and my colleague based in Mumbai, Alpana, she has been trying to help them to procure this medicine. But the procedures are very, very lengthy. There are various stages of approvals and whatnot, and therefore, despite raising some funds and despite trying to purchase medicine, but the baby still hasn't got the medicine. Another child in Coimbatore is on ventilator, and even yesterday I spoke to the mother. 7 days already on ventilator, and they're already incurring heavy bills. They don't know how many days more it'll take for them and how they will be able to pay. It's a very, very difficult situation for parents. If you see, this is again, and the mother recently put this out on social media, and therefore I'm sharing it here. Uh, a mother who lost her child 2 years back. Imagine, how she is living, and she says it is difficult to move on. You can just live, but you really don't live the same way as when your child was. Imagine missing the child every day. These are some of the pictures of so many children we have lost in last 3-4 years. It's so painful. And I have just mentioned these, hashtags here, which we have been seeing. WHO has given us, and our health ministry. Every life is precious. Leave no one behind. Health for all. But these have just remained as hashtags. I don't think there is any action or a serious action on delivering on these, the slogans that we have made. So I think it is time to come together and really work towards delivering on these, the slogans and the hashtags that we have all made. As I mentioned, these are smart children. You can see, and I have just tried to put in as many as I could. From our SMA community, we have, all India national toppers of CBSE board exams in 10 and 12. You can see how difficult it is for these children to be able to sit with spinal braces, but still be able to fight all odds and still be able to, achieve this, level of recognition and the level of achievement in academics. You can see each child is either Olympiads or maybe, and some of them are, really very creative, like singers who have also got an award from the Vice President of India. So you can see they are really, really smart children. They're able to, with this disease and with all these, issues, if they can perform this, if they can achieve this. Imagine if they were given treatment and if they were given a better life, what they would do. So we totally believe that they are national assets, and they really deserve to get a better life, and the government should intervene to give them the treatment they deserve. This year, in fact, we have our Curasum India calendar, and these are all paintings made by our children. It is so difficult; they can't even hold the pen properly. They cannot turn the pages themselves, but they try to, because they are brilliant. You cannot just leave them, unoccupied. So we parents try to give them either anything that they can do sitting on their wheelchair or on their bed, and they try to, make use of the time that they have, and so these are the paintings by our children, and this year our calendar is dedicated to these smart children. Talking about the organization, and in 2014, my colleague based in Mumbai, Alpana Sharma, when her son was diagnosed, she went to US to see the main our organization, which is Cure SMA USA, which is a very old organization, and they're doing a great job. And in fact, they were the ones who funded the research of the first medicine for SMA many years back. So when she saw this parent group working so well in USA, she came back and she started to join some of the people in India through Facebook and social media, and that's how we all came together. And since then, we realized that we'll have to form this foundation. And thanks to Bill Gates Foundation, whom we approached when the first medicine for India was out, which was $750,000 per annum per child, which is around 5 crore in the first medicine, which was Spinraza. When we approached Bill Gates Foundation, I was told that we don't fund a patient, we fund an organization, and that's how we got the idea of creating a foundation. So here we represent patients from all over India, and we have as on date more than 500. This is a previous figure. Registered patients. When we say registry, this is confirmed genetic test report of SMA, and only then we onboard the patient onto our organization. So we represent all patients from all walks of life. We dream of SMA-free world and a barrier-free universal healthcare for all. We really believe in working together and co-creating solutions. For more details, you may please visit our website and follow our Twitter and Instagram handle at CureSM India. As parents, and I'm trying to make my long story short and make use of more pictures in my presentation. So till we did not have a medicine for SMA, as parents we came together and we realized, and we learned it a very hard way, in our own way, taking our children from one city to the other to get the best of a physician or a specialist doctor, to be able to go to a pulmonologist or an orthopedic or a spine surgeon. So earlier we would struggle to go from places to places. So again, my colleague based in Kolkata, Momita Goshi, came up with this SMA clinic in Peerless Hospital, Kolkata, and this was the first SMA clinic, multidisciplinary SMA clinic in India for SMA in 2017. And since then we have been able to spread this to other places, and thanks to all the compassionate doctors, HCPs, who have been so supportive in helping us, because we are a self-funded organization, and we try to manage with the limited resources we have. So unless it was for their help, it was not possible to do all this. So basically the idea is to, under one roof, have all these specialist doctors together, and the patient comes and be able to see all of them. And then there's a regular monitoring as well on various functionalities. This is basically to preserve as much as possible. So before the treatment can come, at least what can be preserved, because it's a progressive disease. So we want to really preserve the functionality as much as we can, with the help of all these specialist doctors under one roof. So we have tried to spread this to various parts of India, from north, south, east, and southern part of India. These are some of the pictures of the SMA clinics we've done, starting from Kolkata, Delhi, Chandigarh, Bangalore, Kochi, Mumbai, and still going on. We wish to spread this more and more as much as possible. During COVID, we have been trying to do this virtually. We also have come up with this is a guideline, which is documented guideline for SMA, which was prepared last year with the help of 22 specialist doctors from across India, and with their inputs we came up with this guideline. This is during COVID pandemic and beyond, because during COVID the special challenge we had was we couldn't have the physiotherapist, we couldn't take the children to the hospital, neither the physiotherapist could come home, and we couldn't even take the children for vaccination. So with these challenges we came up with these guidelines to help parents and patients. During COVID, yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt because of time constraints. Please wind it up.
Sure.
Apologies.
Okay. I try to be very quick. So we've been trying to do this virtual, physiotherapy and other clinics. So as a parent group, we have been trying to reach out to all the, stakeholders like the government, and then we also have been participating in contribution to the national rare disease policy. I think a lot have been already spoken about it. This was a special case for us because when we had this compassionate use program in India for one of the medicine, we faced a lot of problems, and we went to health ministry as well as DGCI, and they thankfully they were really helpful, and we came up with this draft guidelines. If anybody needs more details on these, I can share it offline with others. So these were the various meetings we had with the health ministry, DGCI, to come up with this the draft. And it's still a draft, and we can still we are working on improving these to in order to streamline the process. These are some of the various meetings we've had, multi-stakeholder meetings, and basically we try to we have understood in a hard way that this is a multidisciplinary approach, multi-stakeholders involvement for solution. Therefore we are trying to do this. This was the one with PPHO, which was held in eastern part of India, and my colleague participated. This was in Rajasthan, and thanks to Dr. Ashok Gupta, who was here today, we had done this in Rajasthan with AIIMS Jodhpur and JK Lone Hospital. We have, just for a very few children, we have some medicines coming to India under humanitarian or a compassionate use or a management access program. So this was the, through direct relief, we have few patients getting some medicine, Spinal in India. This is with Roche. From last 2018, we have been trying to, engage with them and trying to convince them to bring the drug to India. Thankfully, after a lot of, you can see the journey from 2018 to 19 and 20, finally they came up with this compassionate use program in India, again for a very few patients. This is with the management access program with Novartis. Again, few children, even last night, 2 children from Kerala have got the gene therapy through the lottery system of Novartis. The This is the way forward. As I mentioned, this is a progressive disease, and we really want to preserve functionality as much as possible. So therefore this is again a pathway which we believe is a multi-stakeholder pathway, and we totally believe that it's a two-pronged approach where we have short-term and a long-term goal. Short-term, which means immediate access to the available medicines for SMA, and getting this treatment immediately and at an affordable rate. And then the long term is of course the genetic screening, newborn screening, and also talking about the continued sustainable treatment, as well as social inclusion, accessibility, and also incentivize the indigenous R&D to make these medicines in India so that they become affordable for a long time. So here we have tried to represent how we feel the long term, the solution could be both two-pronged approach as well as a multi-stakeholder solution, wherein the central and the state government with policies, as well as HCPs with multidisciplinary clinics, industry, pharma, and other ministries involved in social inclusion, education, and employment, and as well as insurance, talking about hospitalization and also about maybe the treatment as well, the medicines. So this is the long-term solution that we think would really help. So thank you so much. And
thank you so much, Archana Vashishpanda ma'am, for a very structurized presentation. Um, Moving forward, we have with us Mr. Manjeet Singh, who is the president of LSDSS. He shall be talking briefly about aggressive counseling, accurate diagnosis, compulsory genetic testing, and immediate provision for treatment. I welcome Mr. Manjeet Singh. Till the time Mr. Manjeet Singh is joining, I would like to let the audience member know that post this, you can, during the break, you can go in the main lobby and receive more and more information. At the bottom of the main lobby, you also have with yourself social lounge, where people of common interest can connect with each other. You can share contact, and as our previous speakers mentioned about the information and about the different resources around rare diseases and what their organizations are doing, you can definitely go ahead and text each other of personal interest. There's also a feedback section at the bottom of the screen in the main lobby, which is very important for us, People to People Health Foundation, because this is a journey which is not just started, but it has to follow up. So seems like Manjeet sir shall be joining us in a while. So let's move forward and invite Mr. Prasanna Shirol, who is the co-founder and executive director of ORDI. He shall be briefly speaking on rare disease policy, what is required. I now welcome Mr. Prasanna Shirol.
Thank you, Sad. Are you able to see my presentation?
Not yet, sir. Please share your screen. We shall be able to
Okay.
see it in a while.
Already shared.
Sir, if you want, I can share on your behalf.
Okay, share it now.
All right.
Is it visible?
No, sir, not yet. Sir, if you... Okay, we have something here. All right, sir. Please put it on full screen.
Yes.
Please put it on full screen. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Is it
Thank
fine?
you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Lakshmikant Palo, CEO PPHF, and the PPHS team, and also Takeda for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I think today I'm going to speak on expectation on rare disease policy, and it is the summary of all the speakers who have spoken since morning, and I'll try to sum up. So just a brief introduction about ORDI. ORDI is an umbrella organization working towards representing 7,000 plus rare diseases from last 6 years. And we have taken a multi-dimensional approach towards rare disease community, right from patient support, advocacy, awareness, and clinical trials and R&D. Since most of the doctors felt the awareness is the key, and one of our key program, Race for 7, is a mass awareness program, which has attended by more than 30,000 people so far in last 6 years in more than 20 cities. And this is going to be again this year, 2020 on 28th February. And I request all of you and all of the viewers to join and make it, the awareness the important subject so that it reaches nook and corner. Then moving towards the policy, the simple expectation is the policy for all. It should provide for support right from diagnosis, treatment, support care, support in clinical trials, R&D for the treatment, and also including most of the rare diseases in RPWD Act and rehabilitation. And all the policy, the currently government policies or healthcare policies are only towards the PPL, but when it comes to rare disease, everybody is a poor, and the policy must cover benefit to all the section of the society without any discrimination. Then the question is, why rare disease policy? Rare disease is a global health issue, and it could recognize in India from the government level. And it provides an identity to the large and neglected community in India who are deprived of basic right to health and other facilities. And rare disease policy helps in ensuring effective and efficient recognition, prevention, diagnosis, treatment, care and research for these diseases in our country. And it also helps the state government to formulate a local strategy, because health is a state subject in India and they need guidance. And this also helps in spreading the uniformity in the support system across all states for all the rare diseases and patients community. And moreover, the complexity in diseases, the cost of treatment, and need for disease-specific approaches, all these things can be focused through a rare disease policy for long-term planning and solution. So the expectation is, we are all aware that there is a policy which announced in 2017 as National Policy for Treatment of Rare Diseases, and later on it was kept in abeyance, and a new policy was announced in 2020, where there is a public consultation in February. What we noticed is the main element, treatment, is missing in this, because it is very important to know why the government has changed the treatment word, that is name of the policy from National Policy for Treatment of Rare Disease to Policy for Rare Disease. Is it the change in focus of the treatment? We don't know. Or is it the focus has been broadened to cover all the aspects of rare disease management? We can only be hopeful. So I think the clarity is required on this. Secondly, the definition of rare disease. The clarity in definition helps effective support planning system at all level, prioritization of the rare diseases and its implementation. While policy is important, we know there could be a delay in arriving at a definition, but this should not be an hindrance to the treatment and support to the patient immediately. However, there is a definition mentioned in new drug and clinical trial rules. As you know, less than 5 lakh people affected by any condition in the country is considered as a rare disease, but we don't know whether this is applicable to Ministry of Health and Family Welfare also, or the same can be extended. The clarity is required. And as all we know, that diagnosis is the key for life-saving changes and for improved quality of life for the entire family. The early and accurate diagnosis is the key, and this will also help in reducing the cost to the public healthcare system. So we feel that pre-testing, especially the high-cost tests like genetic test, scanning, MRI, should be made available freely across the country. And genetic counseling at centers is definitely an important thing and has to be planned across the country. Prenatal screening of high-risk pregnancies need to be facilitated. And last but not the least, newborn screening for the panel of disease has to be made compulsory and implemented across the country. And when it comes to treatment, there are various groups. The treatment for treatable diseases, where the treatment is available and it's also available in India, should be provided immediately to all the patients who are waiting. And then there are treatments which are available in the other parts of the world, but not in India. So mechanism to access this treatment for Indian patients. Then there are new therapy clinical trials which are undergoing, and the government must facilitate inclusion of Indian patients into this clinical trial, because every day is important to the patients and families. And there is no much focus and support to research and development. So the government must provide enough support to develop new treatment wherever there is no treatment available for the condition. And there was mentioned about 100 crore budget allocation in one of the first policy, and we feel, although we are not expert, we thought at least 500 crore to start with, the funding allocation from the government. Then in Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi, there is a cap of 15 lakh rupees for one-time treatment, and this 15 lakh may not be sufficient to most of the one-time treatment like stem cell, lung transplantation, etc. And that cap should not be there in the group 1 diseases. And when it comes to group 2 and 3 categories, as mentioned in the policy, the lifelong treatment need to be planned, and disease-specific financial packages, because every disease burden is different. There are some decisions requires very less number of cost per year, while some are on the higher side. So disease-specific financial packages are very important, and also you should have a provision for new diseases as per the recommendation of the technical committee in this and in future. And also there are certain regular medical requirements like hormones, vitamins, minerals, and macronutrients, which may be which may help the patient to keep alive, which may not be the cure, but definitely helps in good health of the family, and that need to be incorporated in the treatment aspect. And whenever we talk about the treatment, always it comes the patient data. So without waiting much, the ministry can start a website and invite all the existing diagnosed and undiagnosed patients to register. Then secondly, they can collect the existing data from all the hospitals, genetic doctors, specialists in the country, and then diagnostic companies, what all have been diagnosed till date. And this can be the base for the patients to arrive at the data, and the government can start planning accordingly, while government can work on epidemiological data on the long term. And there are, they always talk about sources of funding. It could create a new source of funding with a portion of health sales, or creating a prime minister or chief minister rare disease fund. Then PSU corporate grants exclusively for rare disease treatment in a separate kitty. So such innovative things can also be planned. And when it comes to treatment and long-term care, hospitals plays an important role, and we feel that dedicated national treatment and care coordination center for India, and then minimum one tertiary care hospital in each state, which can manage right from diagnosis treatment in the state. They have mentioned only about 8 national centers, but may not be sufficient even to start with. And later on, this tertiary care hospital in the state can be developed as an hub and spoke model, with minimum 4 to 5 spoke in each state based on the geography, so that the patient need not have to travel more than 100 to 150 kilometers to access the spoke for regular treatment and care. And in the long term, they can also plan, and we must need a center of excellence for rare disease based on the density of the patient and also the expertise of the center will help a lot of patients across the country and also for referral system. And last but not the least, the rehabilitation of all the patients, both medical and non-medical, is very important, including the education, training, employment, etc. And as we all know, there are more than 6,500 who do not have treatment, and long-term supportive care is the only means for survival and hope. And this is very important. And awareness among the clinician, training the supportive care personnel is very, very important. And most of them require regular special medical food, wheelchair, medical devices, and this should be made available and affordable to the patient. And one more thing is, while these diseases are long-term and progressive, family undertakes a lot of stress, and caretaker is very important. And one of the questions which all the caretaker remind is, what happens when I am not there? Who will take care of my child? How are the things going to be after me? These are the regular questions. And currently, there are no lifetime care facility in India. And for such rare disease patient, it has to develop such facility in India so that everybody dies peacefully. Then, once we have the policy, effective implementation is very important. Basically, when it comes to the state and center relationship, the clarity on directives and how it should be implemented and how do we implement, interpret the each directive is important. And we need the clarity on cost sharing on the funding and how it comes, what is the ratio between the state and center, all this needs clarification. And there has to be a central technical committee and state technical committee which can meet quarterly basis to take the stock of the situation in the each state and also about the new condition, new rare disease, new drugs, etc. And there could be one coordination department, because for rare diseases management requires multi-departmental involvement like health and family welfare, finance, chemical department, corporate office, etc. And coordination is very, very important for the effective implementation of the policy and care to the patient. And this policy should be periodically reviewed, because every new day, new diseases are being identified, new technology, new therapies are coming. So the policy should include all such newer requirements. And some of the other things is the government must waive off all taxation like GST, import duty, which are for all the essential drugs, diet supplement required for treatment of rare diseases. And when it comes to patient registry, there is an ICMR patient registry, but still not functional. And we expect that the registry be made functional so that it will be helpful for policy and decision taking mechanism in the country. Finally, there has to be a price control for all the medical devices and dates which is used by persons living with rare diseases, because these are the lifelong equipment which is required and need to be upgraded regularly. And when we all agree that awareness is the key, there is an immediate need to create an awareness among the general public, apart from what we as an NGOs are doing. So the government can plan for a mass campaign, and it can declare World Rare Disease, commemorate the World Rare Disease Day every year, so that it gives the same weightage in the public discourse as other disease conditions are getting priority. And finally, the special focus needed with appropriate funding and regular free benefits similar to the orphan drug law in USA, so that new drugs can be also be developed in India. So these are a few of the summary of the expectation. And as a parent, we continue our journey without giving up. And we know that the whole society is waiting for us to support. And now we expect that government also take a step forward and give solace to all patients and families who are suffering, where we are losing thousands of children every year. And we expect that one government comes and support immediately with the treatment. Thanks to all our patients and families, caregivers, doctors, sponsors, who have been helping and supporting this throughout our journey in this rare journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prasanna Shirol, for a wonderful and extensive talk on rare disease policy, what is required. I may now request for our last speaker, Mr. Manjeet Singh, who is the president of LSDSS, on aggressive counseling, accurate diagnosis, compulsory genetic testing, and Immediate provision for treatment. I may now request Mr. Manjeet Singh, so please unmute himself. Welcome, sir. Hello, Mr. Manjeet Singh, can you hear me? Seems like we have lost him. Team support, I would like you to please intervene and try to connect with Mr. Manjeet Singh as soon as possible. Hello, yes, sir.
Can you hear me? There is a network issue.
We can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Oh, good afternoon. Once again, I thank you very much, the PPH Foundation, and for giving me this opportunity to present on and focusing on northern Indian states. And most of us, the stakeholders who have spoken, they have the same objective and goals for a disease policy, its management, implementation, and way forward to have a robust mechanism to deal with the rare diseases in India. Myself, Manjeet Singh, who is a father of two adult sons now in community, who are afflicted to disorder under syndrome and were diagnosed in 1995. They had adverse cognitives except height. They went to convent schools till 10th standard. They were net savvy, tech savvy, participated in and led many silent awareness marches across India. Used to help me making kits for parents, families, and press and physicians for medical awareness programs and workshops. They knew and understood that there had been no cure for them. That loving care and symptomatic and rehabilitative options, but they had hoped that they would also get treatment in time. Unfortunately, they were not qualified in time for the treatment. Mandy, me and some like-minded parents never looked back thereafter and made it a point to make aware all about allergies, their accurate diagnosis, counseling to parents and make available the treatment options in the absence of any government of India support and bond. Thanks and to the Spinal Valley of MPS Society of United Kingdom and our father of genetics, Dr. Verma, who guided us in 2006 to come together and make a patient advocacy group which finally took shape in 2010. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. It was a small beginning. 6 families we met in 2006 formed a group to take this cause forward, but due to debilitating issues to our wards, support and groups withered away. But I determined to make a difference and encourage my wife to see the God, the Almighty in my boy's eyes. We convinced like-minded parents for India and formed this forum group. Then, with the support of medical fraternity of India, the doctors, the physicians were very, very cooperative and support and guided us to go ahead this lysosomal storage disorders and spread the awareness. Next slide. LSDS is a voluntary organization formed in 2010 by the parents of and patients suffering from LSDs. It is the first and oldest organization working on rare disease with more than 550 patient family registered members. It has been observing, commemorating International Rare Disease since on Bombay Day, MPS Day, Gaussian Day, regularly practically in every nook and corner of this India. And to the COVID issue last year, that now it is being done on the virtual platforms. Next slide, please. LSDS has been working with central government for a verbal policy on rare diseases and has been recently made member of the committee. Sadly, the Ministry of Health Welfare has ever said Government of India backtracked and scuttled of national rare disease policy on the lame and rubbish.
Sir?
Am I audible?
Sir, your voice is glitching. There seems to be a connectivity issue. Please check your internet connection. Switching off your video might also help, maybe. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
So your voice is glitching. Please check your internet connection. And if you want, we can connect back again. You want to try and exiting?
No, it is all connectivity there. But there is a technical issue. You can speak on my the next 3 slides, 4, 5.
You want me to read out these slides? Apologies to the audience members. Seems like Mr. Manjeet Singh had a technical issue over here. As requested by Mr. Manjeet Singh, can we move on to the next slide? I shall be reading it on his behalf as requested by him. So Mr. Manjeet is proud of the LSDSS fraternity who has seen hope against hope, regain smiles on an innocent patient who are waiting to get treatment, is positive that LSDSS and its dedicated voluntary team to bring treatment options to all. Meanwhile, LSDSS shows its compassion by counseling the patient families and processing them with symptomatic and supportive care. LSDSS is proud that currently more than 280 patients are being treated in India, and there is hope to others, as LSDSS has shaken the federal government of India and state provinces through judiciary to give right to life and got favorable orders in LSDSS favor. And many states have started treatment of the patients. About 35 plus patients are being benefited. Employee State Insurance Corporation, ESI, an autonomous body of Ministry of Labor, has also initiated treatment to 24 patients under judicial order. Now, ESI has started the process to consider eligible patients for treatment on medical recommendation without judicial intervention to all under the Rights to Life Constitution of India. Next slide, please. So, for this event, LSDSS strongly recommends state and union territories of India to frame funding provisions in their state health mission for rare diseases without further loss of time and seek from central government for contribution of equal funds under National Health Mission. Next slide, please. So these are some of the recommendations. Looks like Mr. Manjeet has been able to join us. Mr. Manjeet, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Are you okay with my voice now?
Sir, I'm sorry to mention that your voice is glitching again. If you want, I can read it on your behalf.
Yeah, continue, please.
Okay. So the recommendation of LSDSS is quantum of burden. These states should know the fact that rare diseases patient may be in hundreds only, if not thousands or lakhs, but there are handful patients in each state who are actually eligible for definitive treatment despite being the prohibitive cost. These patients should be selected on the recommendation of expert doctor and should be approved by a medical technical committee of each state. The applications being considered for treatment should be blind and coded to do the unbiased process. The second recommendation is to focus on accurate diagnosis and prevention. State medical institutions should intensely aim and plan to focus on accurate diagnosis and should frame the educational program to impart the same with the local dispensaries and primary healthcare centers, vis-a-vis in medical colleges with budding students. It is very well known now that most advanced equipments are now mostly available and correct testing has become possible. This will lead more prevention of such diseases and reduce the financial burden on the state exchequers. Next slide, please. The third recommendation shall be compulsory genetic marker testing. Unlike the thalassemia major and other chronic diseases, a module should be worked out to either do the compulsory genetic testing of all conceiving mothers and or keeping angles on assessing the family history of incidences in families, random testing on doubts by the physician or of any unusual symptom to nip the prospective defective birth in the bud. Sooner they start this project and make it implementable, not only they will have healthy defect free births but also reduce the birth on the state. Fourth recommendation shall be increasing in research and development, as mentioned by many, though this is the prerogatives of central government to work aggressively on this subject. States should not shy away to invest in this subject, as India as a whole has become lagging on research in rare diseases. This was also regretted and accepted by former Director General of ICMR that the government institution neglected the research subject for 40 years. Otherwise, the scenario could have been altogether different. This has also led to development and inventing development and inventing the new treatment of indigenous and generic treatment options at cheaper costs as compared to prohibitive cost imported life-saving medicine. ICMR had already in 2010, after meeting LSDSS team and patient, constituted LSD and Rare Diseases Task Force and has been successfully working at pan-India level at government medical colleges and hospitals and research institutions. States should initiate and work with organizations like ICMR, Department of Biotechnology, CSIR, and other reputed institutions. Moving forward to the conclusion, the central government should immediately allocate funds to start the work with state without further delays and initiate the treatment process on the eligible patients, particularly of the 200 odd application lying pending with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for over 2 years. Some of those children have unfortunately expired. The government can simultaneously keep working on national rare disease policy, keeping all stakeholders in stake in confidence and take its own time. Nevertheless, if the central government changes its primitive mindset and incorporate the above live topics in the policy implementation, the things would become smoother for all. The ministry should have will and spirit to work on the dedicatedly. The government should also with pharma companies on PIP basis to work on lowering of drug prices. Should the central government not forget many states, PSUs, ESIs, armed forces, and many government departments are providing the treatment to the eligible rare diseases patients about 60 at their cost. When quoting, time has come for the governments to wake up from the slumber and understand the plight of rare disease patients who don't need sympathy but empathy.
Thank you very much, Saad, for such a wonderful presentation. Briefly, I thank you all the expert doctors, all the participants, my colleagues in non-government organizations, and the PPHF, and I especially thank Dr. Anant Krishna of OPPI that he has very elaborately covered uh, all these things which are required to be taken up by the government of India. And I really appreciate that my colleagues have also put a very good, forward approach for the rare diseases. It is not some kind of it is not some kind of thing which cannot be done. Only thing is the government should have a really will to do it. So far CSR is concerned, Dr. Sinha was very nice to give.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manjeet Singh, for the presentation as well as the thank you
Yes,
note. Moving ahead,
as they found it
thank you so much. Apologies to the audience members for this unavoidable internet glitch. I would now request the support team to please pull up the presentation deck for the announcement. So, on the behalf of PPHF, I would like to request the support team to please pull up the announcement slide on the presentation deck. Because as we all heard from all our eminent speakers today, that we have to come together for rare, and this is not just the beginning, but we have a long way to go. And People to People Health Foundation is committed to this journey of never-ending support and continuous formulation and collaboration among different stakeholders. On the behalf of People to People Health Foundation, I would like to announce that we did one event in the East, now North, and now next event shall be South India Consultation for Rare Diseases on February 4th, 2021. So this journey shall continue. It's all about, spreading the word and spreading the awareness, which our eminent speakers also very emphasizedly mentioned today. And I would now also like to mention that we have another global conference for rare diseases consultation, which is scheduled for 28th February 2021. Just keep following PPHF's website and social media handles for more information. Moving towards the end, but I would not like to call it an end, but a beginning of yet another journey. I would now like to thank and acknowledge while thanking Government of Chandigarh for supporting this event, Government of Punjab for co-hosting this initiative with People to People Health Foundation. I would now also like to thank Takeda and Japan Embassy for co-powering and supporting this event respectively. The strategic partners I would like to thank are ORDI, LSDSS, Cure SMA Foundation of India, RDIF, our research partner, Grid Council, and the knowledge partner of ICH Kolkata. Thank you so much to all these organizations. We continue to look forward to this collaboration. I would also like to thank the CEO of People to People Health Foundation, Dr. Lakshmikant Palo, Team PPHF, Cheena Malhotra ma'am, Megha ma'am, Usman sir for the creatives, Mr. Ankit and Prabhakar sir from StreamYard for helping in the support team. I would request all the audience members to go back to the main lobby, and there is an information center icon on your left side of the screen. Please make sure that you fulfill the feedback, which is very important for us and making these platforms better. There's also a social lounge, which I would like to mention, where people of common interest can share contacts and information through private messages. Thank you so much. This is Saad Alam Khan, your anchor, signing off, only to meet you next time on 4th of February. Keep following People to People Health Foundation's website for more information. Thank you and have a nice day.